Men of Reddit, what creepy things have women done to you? You literally stabbed me in the back. Maybe she was just desperate for the toilet. In this thread not enough people talk about the outcome after the incident. Did either face charges? See Monday. You seriously curious? We're seriously curious. I was having sex with a girl for the first time and during it she stopped and said, "I don't think I can do this. I think I'm pregnant." We went to sleep and after that night I continued hanging out with her for a while. She eventually got a boyfriend and he messaged me on Facebook saying, "If I ever see you I'm going to kick your ass. I know what you did to her. Don't respond to this message because I don't want her finding out I'm messaging you." I'm still kind of confused by the whole situation. My ex stabbed me with scissors. When I got home one night, she insisted that since I didn't answer her calls that I was cheating on her. I was not. Scissors went 3 inches into my gut. In a daze of confusion I wrestled her to the floor in an attempt to stop her attack. I woke up 4 days later to learn her brother, who, while I was trying to subdue her, thought I was attacking her, hit me in the head with a cast iron skillet, and NBSP. 12 stitches and a slightly worse short-term memory later, I said to myself I'm never talking to her again. Don't stick your dick in crazy. Stay with a hot girl when you know some screws are loose. Gotta be a bronzy, otherwise he's have better escapes. Years and years back I worked in a call center and was friends with this girl. Didn't think anything of it until she propositioned me to have sex with her. While I was flattered I told her I was dating someone else and I was not going to cheat. Forward a few days later I go into work and get pulled into HR. Turns out she's now filed a sexual harassment claim against me. She worked in one area away from me but they decided I needed an assigned seat beside my supervisor so that we would have no interaction period. I was fine with that until her friends started sitting not far from me, usually right in front of my field of view, and she'd come over and sit and talk to them, antagonizing the situation. My boss saw what was going on and brought it up to HR. She was pushing the situation but it was her words, not mine or my boss. Few more weeks of me being watched like a hawk go by and I go into work only to find security and my boss waiting for me. Apparently she felt that me looking in her general direction was harassment enough, so she filed another claim, this time saying I've been sending explicit messages and emails to her. This time my boss fought for me but I got sent home. Walked out in front of the entire call center surrounded by security. I remember writing an email to HR and management that night stating I had absolutely zero contact with her since the night she propositioned me and offered my computer, a lie detector, anything to prove my innocence as long as they would question her. Well, they apparently brought that to her and she ends up confessing that she made the whole thing up and that she did that to another employee and got them fired because they turned her down. They let her keep her job, in fact gave her a fat severance package a few months later. I got stuck in the same punish seat, being threatened that if I told any coworker what happened I'd be fired. I left a few weeks after that, but she had ruined my reputation. In that line of work I couldn't find a job for anything for a while. Few years down the line she spots me on a dating app and tried to hit me up. To this day I still don't get it. Holy fuckballs, would I sue that employer? I tried. What was more fucked up is no lawyer in town would even touch the suit. Was seeing the girl for like 6-ish weeks. We went out one night and she said she had to work late the next day but wanted to come over after. So I gave her my apartment's spare key because why not, and told her to let herself in. I ended up falling asleep waiting for her. I woke up at like 12 AM and noticed there was like a TV light on in the living room. I just figured she was watching something and maybe grabbing a snack before she came to bed. I got up to say hi, rounded the corner, and she was on my computer sifting through my Facebook. I asked her what she was doing and it was obvious she had no idea I was awake and freaked out. Needless to say I told her to give me my key back and showed her the door. Funny thing is, if she asked I would have let her look. I had nothing to hide. I would have thought it was weird, but everyone has their trust issues. But doing something like that behind my back was not cool. To this day I never leave my computer without hitting WinL to lock it. Till WinL locks your computer. She already had that boyfriend and was cheating on him with you. Got cold feet during it. Said that to stop the fun. Went back to him. Felt guilty. Told him that you raped her. Is what it sounds like to me. Reddit is a social media for detectives. My 21st birthday, coworker took me out for drinks. His girlfriend came along. I used to work with her. Her boyfriend got me in his company after I got laid off. I vomited so much in her bathroom toilet. They went to bed. I woke up several times on her living room couch with her hand up the back of my shirt, rubbing my back. She'd notice I was awake, then go back to bed, then come back a few minutes later. They broke up and he told me how much she wanted to fuck me. Oh, they were both old enough to be my parents' BTW. I was at the grocery store with my wife, then 2-year-old daughter, and twin then infant sons. My wife was pushing a double stroller with our daughter and one of the boys in it, and I was carrying the other, who was calmly cuddled up to my shoulder. We're in the produce section when some random middle-aged woman that I had never seen before spots us, makes a beeline towards me, stretches out her hands, and tries to take my kid out of my arms. She didn't look at my wife or me, didn't say a word to either of us. She just literally tried to grab my son from me with no prompting or invitation whatsoever. I stepped away from her and shielded my kid. My wife chased her off. That wasn't the only weird, creepy middle-aged older woman to come out of the woodwork when the twins were still babies, but she was the most frightening. How did she react when you and your wife started getting defensive? Did she give any reasoning? It's so bizarre. She didn't say a word, just walked away when my wife asked what the fuck she was doing and told her to go away. She was silent literally the entire time. You and your wife better start asking family members if one of your ancestors made some promises to which that have yet to be fulfilled. On the other hand, at least the family members chose a less ambitious witch. When my oldest girl was an infant, we had some random wacko lady come over to us in a restaurant and say, "Now I understand why people abduct kids. Fuck off, crazy restaurant lady." Jesus reminds me of the ER by the woman who was kidnapped as a child and escaped one day. It was so fucked up. A couple grabbed her from a store I think when she was like 8 or 9 and brought her to their house. They then tried to live away creepy to normal life where she had to finish her plate and things like that. One day she just escaped out the front door when they were lax and she found someone to help her. If anyone remembers or has a link, it was a terrifying but interesting read and my heart goes out to anyone hurt by people like that. Okay, this is a thing. Just yesterday I was in line at Costco and I watched a middle-aged woman try to gift a random teddy bear she happened to have to these two toddlers. The mom declined politely several times and the woman fucking bypassed her and insisted. The kids were scared and didn't take. I'm also pretty sure I heard her offer to go buy a different one in the store. Same sort of thing happened to me with my son specifically. I was only 21 when he was born. I've always looked very young for my age. Even now that I am 34 I still get carded for booze and smokes. People would always try to hold him or offer me advice etc. Even now, my son just turned 13. My daughter is 10 and people still offer up unwanted advice. I even had some creepy lady in Safeway rub my daughter's arm and tell her how cute she is. Keep your hands off other people's kids. Sorry but this one gets me fired up. I'm not sure if women are generally aware of the extent to which some women feel entitled to and comfortable with grabbing a man's baby. I get the relatives wanting to hold the baby, and friends too. But, I've been at get-togethers and outings at which people I don't know at all just walk over and grab the baby. One example, among several similar, a loose friend of my wife's uncle just decided to grab my son and walk with him for the better part of an hour as we were sightseeing, and actually objected when I asked to have him back. I didn't know her, but randomly bumped into her about a week later in a coffee shop. When I said hello to her she gave me the "don't hit on me" attitude. When I reminded her that we had spent Independent Day together and that I was the dad of the baby she had been carrying around off and on all day, she walked off in a huff. When my son was several months old we had him in a stroller at a store and some random lady walked over and put her hands on his cheeks. I think I put into perspective how inappropriate that was when I put my hands on her cheeks like she did to him. When I was in middle school a friend of mine was absolutely fascinated by the fact that I had pubes. Didn't want to see my dick, just the pubes. This girl who works at my mom's work, their servers, always tells my mom she's going to marry me and thinks I'm cute. It wasn't a big deal at first, but it got out of control for a little bit there, commenting heart eyes and inappropriate remarks on any post my mom made with me tagged in it. She finally followed me on Instagram and liked every one of my 700 something posts, And here comes the worst part. She starts messaging me through Instagram and I didn't reply once, but she begins having a conversation with herself with me in my inbox, like asking questions and answering them for herself and replying as if I said something and saying things like, I heard from your mom that you're going through a rough time, and opens up to me about her past, which is a long and inappropriate thing to send to someone who hasn't even replied. This is among many other creepy things she's done to me. She doesn't bother me anymore though, just the occasional like on a picture. Like 700 photos? That takes at least a good hour's worth of commitment. She moved on to her new husband. You are now just a guy she used to date and talks about you over margaritas with her friends in a bar like it was real. Lol, in a situation like this I don't think a breakup needs to occur. It's funny imagining having to awkwardly break up with someone after they've stabbed you. I was at the pub with some friends and one of them left a scarf at an outback table. She was feeling socially awkward and asked me to get it. I thought no big deal. I'll get it and show her there's nothing to be worried about. I asked a woman in her early 20s. I was 18. If she could pass me the scarf. She got up, walked over to me, wrapped it around my neck and proceeded to try choke me with it, really going for it. Her hands were shaking from the force she was putting into pulling the two ends of the scarf. The pub was packed but everyone just stood there not exactly sure of what was happening, myself included. After what felt like ages, two guys pulled her back to her table. They were looking at me worried, shaking their heads with faces that said we have no idea. Everyone around the table clearly knew her and were shocked by her behavior. I can't help but think about how differently this would have played out if the genders were reversed. If a man did that to a woman in a crowded pub, he'd get thrown out and the police would be called. I'm still confused. Edit. My top comment ever is 3 words. So am I. It was so baffling. I was never really scared during the whole thing. Just confused as fuck. Are you murdering me? Man, that could not have helped your friend's social anxiety. Was she trying to be seductive or was she like being a robot or something? Robotic is actually a perfect descriptor. I don't want any part of your workplace drama. For your information, next time she doesn't get to make that decision. It's a matter of harassment. It's her job to move it up the chain. Be it HR, legal, whatever. It is very much their job in such cases to take part in workplace drama. 100%. As an HR professional, this manager fucking infuriates me. They're the reason we need HR. Dumbest managers are the reason companies lose people and get sued. Jesus. Workplace drama. Fuck outta here with that. It's their job. 3rd week of May of 1993. I broke up with my girlfriend but she still had my letter jacket. We were in high school but going to different high schools. Last day of school, I walked from my high school to her house to get my letter jacket. I get to her house and I see she is not home, so I sat towards the other end of the street waiting for her. Hours later, she finally comes home, so I start walking towards her house. She goes inside. I wait a bit, knock on the door, and say, Melinda, I just want my letter jacket and I'll leave you alone. 30 minutes go by and finally she comes out with it. I'm ready to walk home but she offers a ride home, to which I say, okay, but I have no interest in talking. Get home and she leaves. Jump to fall of 1993. I am working at JCPenney's in their optical area. Close for the night. Come out and notice some guy parked next to my car. Blow it off. Leave, and after a few miles, I noticed this guy is following me. Okay, time to drive to the police station. I stop at a gas station that had a payphone and call the non-emergency phone number for the police and told them the situation. I drive to the police station and as I get closer, the officer stops me and the car following me gets barricaded in by 2 police cars. I found out this person was a retired Texas sheriff that had been hired by my ex, whose father is also a retired Texas sheriff, to keep tabs on me. He gets brought inside and I talk him into calling my ex and tell her he got arrested for following me and she had to come bail him out. So she shows up with her dad and shit hits the fan. I ended up putting a restraining order on the ex-sheriff along with her entire family. 5 years later, she sent me an invitation to her wedding. I mailed it back with no postage. Written on the invitation, fuck off. It would have been kind of funny to RSVP yes with a +1 and just not contact her. She could get really anxious, nervous, wondering if you'd actually show up and waste money on food. Payback. When I picked up my 90-day chip in an AA meeting, This old lady seductively kissed my neck and told me congrats. While not interested, I still sprang a boner. RAA, the goods are odd but the odds are good. And you don't have to pay for her drinks. Came back to the dorm to find a girl who I didn't know waiting for me. I had apparently served her food once at the campus food place I worked at. She figured out who I was and where I lived without even my name. Not sure how I managed to shoo her out peacefully, but I did. Holy shit, she's creepy, but her detective skills are better than Batman. Hey Sarah, do you know who that cute guy is? Who? Oh yeah, his room is next to my BS. Oh, I see, I'm an introvert, so I wouldn't even have the guts to ask Sarah. Sucked my blood from an open scab without informing me she was about to do so. She considered herself a vampire. You just ruined my dinner. You should have looked her dead in the eyes and said I have AIDS. Had a disagreement over buying her some new outfit dress thing, with the supposed victory going to me with we don't have the money right now and we'll see next paycheck compromise. About an hour later while I was cooking dinner she came up and apologized, then came in for a hug which started nice and somewhat affectionate but ended with her pulling her arms away very quickly across my back. This was to have the two razor blades she had sliced 2 deep slashes across my back. She ran away and locked herself in the bathroom. I called 911 and went got stitches and all the medical things. Had insurance, thankfully. Obviously the relationship ended then and there. Looking back like 15 years later, it is real strange as we were together for about 3 years and didn't have any major fights or physical altercations before that happened. It was so trivial with some massive escalation, but in the end it taught me that yes, I can cut someone out of my life. Figuratively, woo punts. Holy fuck man, did you press charges? Did you break up with her through some bullet resistant glass or in a suit of armor? Listen, the whole stabby thing, this just isn't working for me. I'm sorry. Holy fuck, the imagery is killing me. This one is the scariest and saddest to me. Some people truly just lose the plot. She should have spent some time in prison over that. Faked her own death. Faked a terminal illness. Faked a miscarriage. Faked a suicide. Stole over 5 grand from me. Gave me a VD. Made it my fault. The list goes on. It's my fault for believing any of it. But she hunted me down like ease of prey when I was ease of prey. I hope you really are dead and rear. Fuck you. Hey, I have one like that. Fuck you, Erin. Just started dating. Showed her a pic of my son. She then asked what I was going to do with him once we had kids. WTF, holy mother, red flag. That's way past red and even infrared. That's hitting radio flag. Not sure which is more worrying. The fact that he just started dating and she's planning kids already, or that she wants to make the current kid disappear. The latter. Definitely the latter. Well, at least she did you the courtesy of filtering herself out rather than making you figure this out way down the line. All of these are pretty creepy, but why does this one make me sick to my stomach? It shows a complete lack of humanity. I mean, it's something a robot would say if it were trying to be a person on a date. It sounds like a tactless and shitty thing to say, but somewhat understandable if you're a person who thinks like that. But once you get further down the rabbit hole of thinking about it, it gets worse. She's implying a bunch of things and revealing a bunch of things about herself all from one sentence. She's implying that she's not going to care about his kid, that she expects his and her relationship to be the most important part of his life without question, that he can't keep a kid from a former marriage around her or her children, and many other things. She's revealed about herself that she is arrogant, tactless, jealous, careless, emotionally vacant, childish, impatient, obsessive, and lots of other things. I believe she has some atypical emotional health. That's not something a normal person would say, and I'm sure it's hard for anyone to have kids with a person who already has them and integrate all that emotional and personal baggage into their own life, but it's a 100% different thing to imply that a child should suffer because of your own selfish ideas and desires. Seriously, fuck this person. She's the kind of crazy that you don't just not stick your dick in, but the type you cut your dick off if you have to avoid sticking it in. Yes, I know that sentence is incredibly awkward. I can't fix it. I'm tired. Okay dad, it was a fine post, son. A girl borrowed my hoodie in 9th grade, masturbated on it and gave it back to me. She was really a disturbing girl but didn't find out until that happened. Name checks out. A girl I had been dating for just a couple weeks invited me to her mom's house for dinner. Halfway through dinner I finally noticed that they had printed out pictures of me from MySpace. This was back when MySpace was normal, put them in frames, and randomly interspersed them with other family pictures throughout the house. They were laughing hysterically at my reaction. I told them, very plainly and very seriously, that if it was a joke, it was hilarious, but if it wasn't, they never actually answered whether it was a joke or not. We didn't date much longer than that. For real though, if that was a joke it would be hilarious. Do it and just see if they notice. Probably not that situation though. I am honestly thinking of doing this to a friend. I think I might do this to my younger brother next time he visits my apartment. The opposite of this is known as manly piecing. You take a framed photo of yourself to another person's house and sneakily leave it displayed in a prominent place, or optionally switch a picture they already have for one of yourself. Edit. Since this has become one of my more popular comments, I would like to give proper credit. I first became aware of the term manly piecing when it was used by college humor writer and comedian Aaron Caro sometime around 2000 to 2002. This is where it originated. I can't find the original story by him or I'd share. Classic is swapping it for a picture of Jesus. Is it possible it was a joke and they felt really awkward that you thought it might not be a joke? Hey, I didn't know you were on Reddit. I've been trying to get a hold of you for a while now but the message never gets through. How have you been? Walking from school in a big gaggle, I overhear a girl like 20 feet down, at full volume, say I could have sex with Smillis Piece anytime I want. I mean, she could have, but still kinda creepy I guess. That's when you yell back to her, so why haven't you? Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. RIP you Smillis Piece. In the middle of lifting, I was interrupted by a woman who told me I'd make a great stepdad. No clue who she was, but I did nope out quite fast. Lifting weights or lifting merch? Ha. She actually lived in the same apartment complex. I think it was an anger turd. Weird staring girl. When I was in high school, I noticed a girl just staring at me while I was eating lunch with friends in the cafeteria. I don't really think much of it that day. The next day I see the same girl just staring at me again. This time I think maybe this girl likes me or a friend sitting next to me. This girl is not ugly or anything, just a normal girl. This keeps happening like almost every day for 2 weeks or so. She even eats food just staring at me. Sometimes I see her standing in the hall staring while I am waiting for a class to start. Even when I went to the basement, with another group of friends, to have lunch, she is there. So after a hallway death stare incident, I get creeped out and tell my friends in a class about this. They don't believe me or make some jokes and laugh. So one day at lunch I whisper to my friends that this girl has been staring at me for 2 weeks. It's creeping me out. They look at her and tell me that they have noticed that too but didn't say anything. I am hoping it's just a weird crush she has, so I just end up going up to her and say hi. She just keeps staring for 15 seconds. I say, why do you keep staring at me every day? She continues staring for 30 seconds or so. I tell her to please stop doing that and walk away. Next day, nope, there she is. Thank God she moved out to a different school after a few weeks. At least she didn't follow me to my home, I think. before she was dead and just really socially awkward. Edit. Death not dead. I'm leaving this here to remind myself how dumb I am sometimes. No, this is a spooky creepypasta about his ghost waifu. I was a limo driver for a number of years. One time this very drunk girl climbed through the divider into the front seat. I was on a fairly busy stretch of highway with nowhere to immediately pull off. There was a lot going on the road, so I really couldn't do anything but try to reason with her. I was seriously afraid she would bump me or the wheel or do something that would cause an accident. After she worms her way up front, she starts rubbing my thigh and telling me that I should leave my girlfriend for her. All the while her friends in the back were egging her on and thinking it was funny as hell. I pushed her hand off my upper thigh cock region several times before I finally managed to get to an exit where I could stop. It took me threatening to cancel the trip for her to get in the back of the car. Not the only time something like this happened, but it was the only time a girl risked all of our lives to make it happen. Usually there's one reasonable person in the group to keep the crazies in check. I fucking hate groups of drunk girls. They lose all sense of right and wrong. Most of my friends are girls, and I love going drinking with them. But if they ever form a slightly larger group, I don't want to be around because shit will get crazy. Group dynamics are scary. Oh man. When I was younger, 22 I think, I signed up to work an event at the job I was at. I had to work a table with an activity and help these Girl Scouts craft something. So these two 13-year-old girls came up and started making crafts. Then they asked me for my phone number and I told them number. Then they asked my name and I told them number. They constantly asked for both of those, and I refused. A female co-worker came up and started chatting with me. The girls then asked her for my info and she gave it away. I was pissed, and thinking back, I'm still pissed. One of them started texting me immediately. I told her to stop and she laughed and walked away. I blocked her number. The next day I got a FB friend request from her and blocked it. Then I started getting messages from her. The same co-worker gave her my work email address and my Space account. She was very persistent in getting me to talk to her and I hated it. Finally I messaged her troop leader and told her about what was going on. She just said she'd take care of it and I never heard from her again. I think not just her age but how persistent she was what creeped me out the most about her. What your coworker did was wildly inappropriate. I would have told my supervisor, and I'm glad you contacted the troop leader. That sounds crazy. I agree. I had a high tolerance for her bullshit during that time but finally dropped her a few years later. But that's a shit story for another time. Edit. Fuck you guys for peer pressure, and fuck me for baiting. I didn't think about it when I wrote it. Another time means another AskReddit thread. To make a long story short, coworker and I were great friends, but she turned into a raging alcoholic. We tried to help, she accepted the help, but refused to change. One thing led to another and shit got stolen. Things got broken. Her friends were bailing her car out of impound, paying her fines etc. She refused to change so we changed the situation by cutting off communications and friendship. It's a shit story and I apologize for writing that and leading you on. You should know that doesn't fly here. Come on now, out with it, at least a TLDR version maybe PLS. I was super drunk passed out on my friend's couch. His friend was there also. I woke up to find her straddling me and pouring whiskey down my throat. It was super not needed. I was destroyed. Apparently she had sex with me that night. Can't say I consented as I wasn't conscious. That's rape. I'm so sorry. She raped you and that's unacceptable. Did you ever think about pressing charges? My group of friends, back in the hardcore party days, knew a girl that you never passed out around because she would definitely molest you. Obviously she was never again invited to our parties but the friends of friends parties were still a place she would go. The best you could do is attempt to inform others but that's as far as it goes. These situations are much harder for a man to deal with and definitely harder to get legal victories. I'm not saying that the op should not try to pursue charges. I'm just explaining that this is much more difficult for a man to get legal justice for. A girl licked my knee at a club. How much are you worth? Maybe he could be traded for a torpedo. What rank are you? Yeah, don't leave us hanging. Things people do to get a coach. I've had women grab my crotch, ass and rub themselves on me. No, none of them were hot. One of them told me point blank, I've seen your wife, you've seen my husband. I think we can both do better. Don't you? Come on. We make such a great pair. Girl I dated made a voodoo doll out of her used tampon and my hair shavings from my electric razor that she said she'd use on me if we ever broke up. She buried it inside a lunchbox at the beach and drew a map to find it. She's now a married mother of two. Married to you, or, edit. Well, this is my most upvoted comment LMAO. Obviously, you think he's gonna mess with voodoo? Hoodoo? I've heard there's a belief that started in the Caribbean. I think that if a man ingests a woman's period blood he's hers forever. If a girl's made tampon voodoo dolls of you she's probably tried this. Till I'm owned by at least 12 women. I was at a music festival in an American flag on Ishi last year, and a lot of people were wanting to take pictures with me. I was having a good time meeting a bunch of new people. These group of older ladies between 40s and 50s came up to me and wanted a picture. When I got in their group, one kneeled down. When they took the picture, the one who knelt down grabbed my crotch. I moved and yelled hey. She said shut up and grabbed it again and said you're a guy. Enjoy this. I ended up just leaving pretty quickly at that point. Edit. Thanks for all the support. If you need any help or advice, please look at the stickied comment from the admin. Edit 2. Here is the suit IMGA webpage in question. Damn man, that shit's wrong on so many levels. I had a girl grab my junk at a bar once. I've never hit a woman in my life, but I almost did out of shock and anger on that occasion. Told her to get the fuck off me. She tried the whole, you know you like it bullshit. My buddy tried to come to my rescue telling her I was married and she responded she loves married men. Shit still makes me angry just thinking about. Edit. My highest upvoted comment. I'm glad it's from a show of support from all of you out there who feel the same as I do. Thank you all. I've been in pubs and clubs with previous boyfriends, where I've been literally shoved out of the way by women who decided my boyfriend should be theirs. One massive girl even put her hand round my throat and told me he was hers now. The dickhead in question booked it to the toilet, leaving me being strangled by this girl, and luckily my friends came to rescue me, but yeah, plenty of nutters out there. I was at a music festival in an American flag on Ishi, U2, searched my apartment, phone, camera, computer, and everything else I owned the first time I left her alone in my place because she wanted to know more about me. She ended up creating a version of my personality she interpreted through my things. And this is why my phone, tablet, Chromebook and PC are all password protected. My phone's always notifying me you're here frequently. Mark this location as a safe place so you don't have to use your password on your phone. Haha. Living with other people. This is the place I'm going to lock it the most. Edit. For everyone asking what phone I have, Samsung S6 Edge, but it's Google and Android making the suggestion. A girl grabbed my ass and fingered my butthole a little while I was in Mexico. I was just watching the Day of the Dead dances and blammo finger in my butt. Turned around and saw a little Mexican woman slip through the crowd. My girlfriend was like, why'd you jump? And I explained I just got a finger in my butt. How was it that easy to get to your butthole? Edit. Thank you for the gold, kind stranger. This is my first. Thin basketball type shorts. It was warm out. Thin basketball type shorts. It was warm out. I don't know if you're saying it was warm out to excuse the basketball shorts or to explain the looseness of your butthole. Swamp ass is a natural lubricant. You don't keep your butt cheeks clenched at all times while standing? What the hell? Question mark? Checking for drugs. I was at work when a customer came in. She was overweight and looked pretty slobby. Hair was a mess. Wearing pajamas. A mismatched pair of shoes. She came up to me and asked how she looked because she was about to start driving for Uber and wanted to know if she looked presentable. I just said sure and tried walking away, but she wouldn't let me leave. I don't know how we ended up here, but she started talking about how her skin can't handle most soaps and had to use some alternative to it. Can't remember what it was. She shoved her arm in my face telling me to smell it. To see that it didn't smell bad, I politely declined. But she did it again and made it clear she wasn't moving until I smelled her arm. I finally did. Said it was fine. And walked away as fast as I could. Was definitely one of the most uncomfortable moments I've had with someone. But like, did it smell? Edit. For the chorus of people who came in after the fact to make a check's username. Joke. IMGA webpage. Thankfully no, it didn't smell like anything. Does this smell like chloroform to you? She showed up at my apartment back in college. She knocked on the door and I didn't answer. It was late. I was tired, and I didn't invite her over. She kept knocking louder and louder. The police arrived and asked her to leave. She left and showed back up about 5 minutes later. She knocked some more and finally gave up. The next morning I found a human turd on my doormat. He should have smushed it against her door or made it so the turd fell on her when she opened her door. Turd justice. Best part is, she wouldn't even be able to blame it on anyone because DNA forensics would come back as her own turd. It's a perfect crime. The haft of the arrow was feathered with the eagle's own plume. We often give our enemies the means to our own destruction. Do people plan this beforehand, or is it a spur of the moment kind of thing? I mean, I don't think I can push out a turd on command. Don't think it was planned. She left a wine glass and a phone charger too. I'm sure she was hammered. Not that that's an excuse. A wine glass, a phone charger, and a turd. What an interesting combination of items. This is the worst point and click adventure ever. Here's how I think the puzzle went. Drink Red Bull. You try to force it down, but it tastes horrific. Use turd on wine glass. You rub the glass with the turd. Nothing happens, but the glass is now dirty. Use turd on dirty wine glass. It's about as filthy as it's going to get. Use Red Bull on dirty wine glass. You have made a cocktail. Bullshit. Drink bullshit. The turd has made the Red Bull slightly better, and you force the vile mixture down. You have wings. Fly. You are too heavy. Drop wine glass. Drop phone charger. Drop turd. Fly. You soar majestically through the skylight, leaving the soiled doormat far below. Edit. Talk to kind stranger. You thank the stranger for your gold. WTF. She turned into a human turd? Lame superpower. She was already a piece of shit to begin with. Years later, she went on to be a delivery driver for Amazon. Silver lining in this thread. As a young teenager, this big girl would aggressively grope me every chance she got on the school bus. The bus driver wouldn't believe me because women don't do that and all guys always want it. One day I was walking to my seat. She grabbed my crotch so hard it hurt and said, "You're not a real man until you split our coke." She was a black girl in case that pickup line didn't make sense. I started walking home or bumming rides after that. Dark oak? Geez, ebony or mahogany would have made way more sense. I know, she wasn't very bright, which was one of the reasons teenage virgin me was turning down what was likely a sure thing. Well, someone sexually assaulting you is also a good reason. That's a legitimately terrible come on line. I'm sorry for both the event and that line. Oh man. I, 23am, worked fast food for 3 years, and I was stuck on register. This was April in 2016, and I was just graduating college and took this job so I had some extra income while I was doing some pretty demanding job training stuff that wasn't paid. This was a slower Saturday and I'm just standing at the register, because fast food don't move from your spot. Whatever. I am pretty much watching the dining room and watching everyone eat. I'm also the only one at the counter. This woman, probably late 20s to mid 30s, makes this super intense eye contact with me, spreads her legs where I have full view of her cooch because she's wearing nothing under a hiked up skirt. She continues making intense eye contact while mauling into her chicken dinner. Wish I was making this up. Haven't told anyone because who would believe me? She wasn't horrible looking 5/7. Wouldn't work fast food again. TLDR. Worked fast food. Woman spread cooch while making intense eye contact whilst eating chicken. Pulled my pants down in the middle of a tailgate party. It was my wife's surprise day party. It wasn't my wife who pulled my pants down. I was hanging out with a couple of friends once. One of them got too drunk and started rubbing my penis through my jeans. She was twice my age, fat, and generally unattractive, but what made more of a difference than that was that she kind of grabbed me when I started to pull away. I was much stronger than her and sober, so I didn't feel like I was not in control of the situation. But the fact that she tried to control me physically kind of took it out of the realm of what I was comfortable with. In the 5th grade, we were starting the family life lessons, which is basically sex ed. One of the girls in my class pointed at me and said that I would impregnate her. I hope she didn't know what that meant. Of course they're gonna know what intercourse is. By the time they hit 4th grade, they got the Discovery Channel, don't they? We ain't nothing but mammals. Well, some of us cannibals, who cut other people open like cantaloupes. I was raped in sex ed. We were doing a lesson that involved STDs, that involved invisible dye that was in a select few students' cups. We were told to exchange fluids with 3 people. When it was revealed that the girl next to me had the STD, I chuckled at her. Her response was to pour her liquid in my cup and say, "There, I raped you, and now you have AIDS. If I have sex with enough clean people I can dilute my AIDS." He stuck his dick in the Speed Force again, thanks. That one was so long and weird that I was sure a tree footy was coming. You joke, but in certain African countries that is an actual belief, though it has to be a virgin. Wikipedia webpage. Apparently medieval Europe also had some version of the myth, though with other STDs. They might actually be onto something. I read that having sex with a virgin is 99% effective at curing virginity. LMAO, that was funnier than I expected. I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and my GF followed me and sat outside the door to wait for me and I didn't notice. Opening up my bathroom door to see a humanoid figure sitting in the dark by my feet at 3 in the morning scared the ever-living shit out of me. My 2-year-old does this to me constantly. Scares the shit out of me every time. I'd be scared of accidentally kicking them. That's what I almost did to my GF. I always jump a foot in the air and scream oh fuck shit, which in turn startles her. So then she starts crying. Parenthood is fun. Yeah, it's like a subscription service where every day a brand new panic attack is delivered to your doorstep. What kind of pants? Edit. Got a great not from men of Reddit. What creepy things have women done to you? AskReddit webpage. Looks like I got some shopping to do. Cock bulges TM. You wear leather assless chaps to the office one time. I mean, all chaps are assless if you think about it. Otherwise, they'd just be pants. Chaps with an ass would be crotchless pants. I am not proud of how much time I've spent thinking about this. If you're a shower, there's two types of pants or shorts that show off the goods. Anything that fits well but has loose fabric, such as sweatpants, gym shorts, PJ pants, etc. Pretty much anything that will show some swinging or bouncing as you move around. Second, anything fitted, especially around the thighs. The package will stand out more when the fabric around the upper legs isn't loose and baggy. If you're a grower, or not as well endowed, get some underwear with a pouch pocket in the front for your junk. It pushes your package out and gives you a bigger looking bulge. Works particularly well if you have big balls, but they are a little less comfortable than your average pair of underwear. You'll have less bounce, so the loose clothes like sweatpants and gym shorts won't work as well, but the more fitted options will work great. Also pick uniform colored clothing, particularly light or medium colored. Distressed jeans, or anything with too much texture will cover up and hide bulge detail. Patterns can work either way, help or hide depending on how the pattern is working with the package. Test the pants sitting down and standing up. The waist of the pants need to be high enough that the belt loop is well above the start of the package. No sagging where the pants where they should be worn. Will vary a bit on the cut and style. If you have a belly, the pants need to be under your gut, otherwise you're making a hanging canopy over your genitals. Pay attention to the zipper area as well. It can mask or exaggerate the shape, in a good or bad way. Wearing a belt can help, mostly by keeping the pants where they should be. Source: I am a gay male and package expert. I observed a similar situation happen at work. The lady was promptly fired for sexual harassment. It was well deserved. Edit: I am a female. Any sexual harassment should have consequences, no matter who the perpetrator or victim are. I had a woman show me photos on her phone from when she was at a Minatrix. I asked her to stop and she kept it up. Another lady wouldn't stop grabbing and tickling my ass. Having to report and ask them to stop so many times was infuriating. As an ugly white dude, I can't imagine what some people who are more seen as targets have to deal with. At age 14 I visited my sister in a mental ward attached to a hospital. Cigarette why middle-aged women kept making passes at me. It wasn't an all-female institution or anything. Is that how we describe smokers now? I guess cigarette why is a politically correct term. The proper term is ashtray Americans. Removed. Cigar yeti is a derogatory term then. Ex-girlfriend cheated on me with an abusive ex-boyfriend from a few years ago in high school. Found out and living an hour away. I planned to break up that weekend when I saw her again. Confronted her and she went crazy and tried using a blender on my dick before it unplugged from the wall. Got her out of my apt and went to work. Came home that night to find she broke in my apt and stole my cat. Never did see the cat again, but she is now overweight. Baby to the ex-BF she cheated on me with, and the ex fled the state. Family kicked her out of the house, and I'm doing just fine in life now. Edit: for those asking why a blender. For whatever reason that was the first thing she had grabbed and I was about a foot away from her. Yes, she took off the top exposing the blades. I have not seen the cat since, sadly. Even worse, I guess I forgot to mention, the cat was only 3 months old, tabby female cat named Nika. That's fucked up, man. How could you steal someone's pet? I feel the blender is also highly relevant. Haha. I too read the story and got freaked out about the blender but then completely distracted by the stolen cat. You don't steal cats. That ain't right. My friend was chatting with a woman he just met online from the same school, different grad program. Before they agreed to a first date, she somehow found his address and sent a gift basket to his apartment. He immediately blocked her and luckily never heard from her again. My first week of college I started dating a girl, we'll call her Kathy, and cut it off after 2 weeks as it felt a bit weird. I had left my planner in her room. This should date the story. An actual paper book that kept my calendar and assignments and appointments. I kept asking when I could get it back, and she kept making excuses. This was strange, as we lived in the same building 1 floor apart. I finally got it back, thanked her, went on with my life, and then I found her edits to my calendar, in the past and in the future. She'd written sex with Kathy in various appointment blocks. Some entries were more descriptive, really great sex, came twice, etc. And they were written from my perspective. They started on the day we met and extended several weeks into the future. I've never had sex with Kathy. Edit. College for collage. That's so fucking weird. When I was in medical school, a girl 3 years my junior started obsessing over me. Initially it was kinda mild in the I have a crush on you sense. She'd ask my friends about me and messaged me on SockMed from her friends' accounts. Chalked it up to being young. Then she started to mess with girls that I'm close to, including my sister, telling them that they don't deserve me and that I'm hers. Also started hanging out at my neighbor's place and refused to leave until they call me out for some stupid reason and whatnot. And she'd hang out in the neighborhood I live in and pretend that we bumped into each other on accident. Oh, and I would occasionally post music I like on FB or Twitter, and she would post music of her own as a response because she's convinced that all those music I post is for her. Then in my final year she wrote this 80-page letter in which she professed her love and compared me to some messiah shit. Oh, and the best part, it's been a few years since then. A few months ago she started working where I am. The nightmare fucking continues. PLS post 80-page love note. I've given it to a good friend for safekeeping to be used as evidence in case I accidentally get murdered. 80 pages? Is this a love note or a manifesto? Definitely a manifesto. The call me? Yes, manifesto. Good call. Accidentally. The thing about that is by the time you've convinced people at work she's crazy and needs to be fired, the daily dose of arsenic she's been slowly upping in your morning coffee for months reaches a deadly toxicity point and it's too late. So there's this awful channel we have to leave on at work. It shows the same like 20 episodes of this informative murder porn show during my shifts. One episode, dude fails to kill his wife because he dosed her daily, then gave her a huge dose, but the daily doses had given her slight immunity, permanent nerve damage, but still alive, with like a 4x lethal dose. I actively try not to pay attention, but when it's on enough you catch shit. Holy shit. Time for a restraining order, bro. My thoughts exactly. This isn't a girl obsessing over you. This is a full-blown stalker. After 3 or so dates started talking like we were engaged. When are we going on vacation together? Should we get married in a church? How many would you like us to have? I called it off after that. So she threatened to tell the police I raped her. Luckily nothing ever came of that. Used to be friends with a girl from church. A girl from her high school got in trouble after her last 3 boyfriends ended up in jail for raping her, each individually, not all 3 together. I guess she was going around the school bragging that she can't stand breaking up with someone because it's just too awkward to tell them it's over, so instead she'd call the police and tell them he raped her. After someone recorded her on their phone going on about it, their names were cleared, but I know at least one of the guys lost some really good scholarships because of it. He should sue for defamation and get the cost of scholarships. There needs to be way harsher penalties for this kind of shit. What is the charge for making false accusations of this nature? Making a false police report does seem to cover it. A slap on the wrist, as they say. Was out for a late night run when I met an older woman along the sidewalk. She was staring at me, so I stopped to see if she was okay. We chatted and then I started to continue my run. She said, "Hey, you're cute." I just politely said, "Thanks," and put my headphones back in. As I started to jog she kept shouting, "Hey, you're cute," and started following after me. Just pretended I couldn't hear her over my music and picked up my pace a little. Thankfully she was a smoker. I dated an artist a few years back. I got a notification on Instagram that she tagged me in one of her paintings, and so I go to check it out. I see that it is a painting of her cutting off my dick while she's wearing a bunny suit. I then check out her Instagram story. It's a video of the painting in progress. and she's actually wearing a bunny suit while painting it. Edit. And yes, I have a screenshot. Censored her face. Imga webpage. She's only replying to your username request. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? I read this as a how to pronounce video on YouTube. Link to the painting. First date. Oh, what's your blood type? Me. O positive. Why? Oh, but we can have kids. Me. Breaks world record for fastest run speed. Run. Barry. Run. Was she Japanese, by chance, or really into Japanese culture or anime or something? For some Japanese, blood type is kind of like zodiac is in the West. If you say you are an O positive, people will nod and say yeah, you have the temperament of an O positive person, whatever that means. Then they will tell you that you should pair up with someone who is a certain blood type. Sorry, I can't be more specific. I never paid much attention to the whole matter and I don't even know my own blood type. This is why many fighting games will have blood type listed in the character bios. Dart. Whoa. Noticed that while back in Street Fighter 2. I had no idea. I figured it was just a standard kind of thing you make up when you're putting a character's bio together, adding to the realism of it, I suppose. I assumed it was because these people are engaged in a semi-legal fighting tournament that features competitors who can literally throw fire. I imagine blood transfusions are an hourly occurrence. Not just Japanese. East Asians have a problem where clashing blood types would cause an autoimmune symptom that can be deadly to the mother and the child. Back when they discovered this medicine wasn't as advanced enough to consistently treat it, but at least they had a way to prevent what my parents called the jaundice liver. This mixed with East Asians' culture of superstition and horoscopes and it caught on. Fun fact, my parents have incompatible blood types, B+ and O, and I was hospitalized for almost a year after birth because I was born in a relatively backwater mountain village with a 60% infant mortality rate. Came out with a severely weakened liver. That's not limited to East Asians. Called ABO incompatibility, one of the biggest causes of neonatal jaundice in all races. Asians happen to be more susceptible to jaundice to begin with, is all. I thought it was due to the Rh factor, the negative positive in blood type. If you have but your mother doesn't, her body views your fetus as a foreign body. It usually affects second and later children, because the mother doesn't have the immune response yet for the first. There are two types, Acume's positive antibody, as related to Rh factor, mom negative and baby positive, can cause hemolytic disease of the newborn and jaundice, as can ABO incompatibility, X. Mom is O and baby is A, can get literally anti-A antibodies. These things cause an unnatural breakdown of red blood cells which then release bilirubin, which is present in our BCs. To answer your question, Rh-neg moms can produce antibodies to Rh positive blood, which will affect the second pregnancy because the antibodies didn't exist until blood was mixed during delivery. For this reason we administer Rogan, gamma globulin, to prevent production of these antibodies during the pregnancy and whenever there is a risk of blood being mixed, that is, miscarriage, placental hemorrhage, EXC. In my experience, ABO infants always got sicker. For info guys, all babies get jaundiced in the first few days of life. It's actually beneficial to a degree and prevents infection. What we worry about is kernicterus, which is caused by very high levels of bilirubin and can cause permanent brain damage. That's why infants are typically observed for 48 hours after birth even if healthy, as well as to monitor for fever and weight loss. Hyperbilirubinemia is treatable and kernicterus is preventable, so that's why we are vigilant. Treatment can be as simple as exposure to sunlight, UV radiation breaks down bilirubin in the skin, or use of a biliblanket. If very severe, infants may need exchange transfusion to reduce bilirubin levels. Risk factors include ABO or Rh incompatibility, prematurity, low birth weight, certain races, Asian, exposure to certain meds in utero, poor feeding, and a few others. It is because of the Rh factor. The Rh factor, M. How it can affect your pregnancy, M. ACOG webpage. When pregnant, when an Rh negative mother's blood comes into contact with blood from her Rh positive fetus, it causes the Rh negative mother to make antibodies against the Rh factor. These antibodies attack the Rh factor as if it were a harmful substance. A person with Rh negative blood who makes Rh antibodies is called Rh sensitized. I seem to recall that in this situation, the first child is born without ever being attacked by the antibodies, but any subsequent children will be since all the antibodies are ready to go. Yeah, but it's no problem these days because of a drug called Drogen. Of all the angles to come from when diving into a discussion about having children, she starts with blood type. Ha 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 ha. Made an alt for this. It's become the dark event that's divided our town. It happened to a friend I knew. Real bright, had a well-paying job. One day he parties with this girl. She claimed he raped her but refused to speak with police. Despite this and despite the fact that he had recorded a phone call with her admitting she was lying, his life was ruined. I watched him go on a downward spiral and I had a couple decade-long friends turn on me just for being around him. Well, a year and 6 months after the allegations, he started getting phone calls from her, demanding money. He agreed to meet her in a hotel room. Once she arrived, he shot and killed her then turned the gun on himself. It's taken a long time to cope, and it scares me how moments after any allegation, people form a mob for justice. I know victims should be encouraged to come forward, but when a guy has proof, the girl wouldn't go to the police. She willingly met him in a hotel room after essentially trying to blackmail him. That should be enough to prove one's innocence. I lost a good friend, so he had proof, but people had already decided he was guilty based purely on accusations, and refused to hear it. Sorry for your loss. God, I'm so sorry. How awful. Neighbor introduced me to her female friend one day as I was leaving my house. She right away became fond of me in ways that were not mutual. Not even a day or two later I noticed what seemed to be her car parked out next to mine as I was working. Grocery store. And thought, nah, no way. Hour-ish later I'm off work. Car is still there. And no shit there she was waiting for me because I hadn't texted her back. Neighbor must have told her where I worked. Whole thing was very weird. I had to nope out a few more times to the point of being fairly mean until she got the idea. Ladies, fellas, can we all just agree not to stalk? Oh Jesus, so many stories. I was working at a pharmacy in Michigan. I had gotten one of my really good friends a job there, both of us being single. We got too drunk one night and ended up hooking up. She mentioned it to one of our co-workers. That co-worker told another co-worker, and they began to ask to see my dick, asking if I had measured it, would try and compare it to things, asking if it was close to this size, etc. It was pretty awkward all around. I also had a female pharmacist who used to get really close to me and throw her hip into mine. She'd give me a hug when I showed up to work, not in an okay way. She'd make comments about how we would have dated when she wasn't married. Other weird ass comments. Did you guys not rotate partners in that class at all? I took a couple ballroom classes myself when I went to college and we swapped partners multiple times a night so that we'd learn to adapt to physical differences, stride length, height, etc. and styles. Us two, we were in a big circle, and the men would move one girl around every minute or so. Best class ever. Way to look at the positive side. You got a good life skill out of it. Some context. I was friends with a teacher from high school. She was one of my favorite teachers. One day, she told me that we had met in a past life and confessed her love for me. This was by far the weirdest thing I have encountered in life. Asked me to gift her the wisdom teeth I recently had removed. Creeped me right the hell out of that very brief relationship. To be fair, wisdom teeth are huge and look pretty cool. I saved mine. For reasons. Not interested in having anyone else's though. Dentist here. Not all wisdom teeth are huge or cool looking. Some look like second molars and pretty normal. They definitely have the most variation of any tooth though, and some are really interesting. Impacted ones rather commonly have to be cut in pieces to take out, so you can't see them. Also super weird that lady wanted your teeth. When I was around 15, I was super socially awkward, which meant that I wasn't exactly the popular kid, but there was a certain segment of the girls who, in retrospect, probably mistook my almost complete inability to talk to other people as me being mysterious or something like that, and were interested in me as a result. At one point in time, a girl I literally didn't even know came up to me and told me, point blank, I want to fuck your brains out. Now, normally that would be hot as hell if it came from someone you were interested in. But when you're a huge introvert and it's coming from someone whose name you don't even know yet, not so much. I don't remember what I said in response, but I don't imagine it was very smooth, since I kinda wanted to just get the F out of there as fast as possible. Thanks. Why you too? Yeah, sounds cool. Have a good one. The shitty thing about situations like this is you're so conditioned from years of people messing with you that even if she was serious, there'd be no way you believe her. You just assume she was screwing with you to try and embarrass you. I met Robin, a girl from another town, and we became pen pals for our senior year. Toward the end of the year I broke up with my girlfriend and she asked me to her prom. I went with her. We had a nice evening, but not much happened physically. That was the last time I saw her. Over the summer I got another girlfriend and Robin joined the Navy. She sent a last letter before she left for basic. I got a letter 2 years later asking if I wanted her back and that she was holding out for me. 17 years later she called my parents' number and got my number. This time she told me about how her life was a mess and never forgot about me. She hinted, but didn't beg for a date, and luckily we were half the country apart. 2 years after that she tried friending my mother, who she's never met, on Facebook in order to find me. Last year at Christmas she finally found my account and tried to friend me. This sounds like somebody who has a very long-held crush on you. You are like this bright little beacon of goodness in a life that feels like it's gone downhill ever since, which means she has probably created some strange picture of you in her mind, which no longer matches reality. I would say talk to her, like, over the phone. If you decide she's a weirdo and you don't want anything to do with her, then tell her very firmly that you are not interested in pursuing a relationship. Crush her hopes completely. I don't say this to be mean, but because it sounds like she has the same sort of undying hope that I am cursed with. You need to crush that hope completely, so that she can move on. I matched with a girl on Tinder, talked to her for a few weeks on the app. She was sweet, smart, funny, ambitious, seemed like the total package. I asked her on a date, picked her up. She lived a town over, so it was a real short drive, and we went out and she was just nowhere near as alluring in person. But I never wanna be someone's bad date experience, so I tried to keep my distance, but still give her a fun night. Dropped her off. That was that. The next day I called her, told her that I think she's great, but that the spark I'm looking for just wasn't there. She flipped. She called me every name in the book, insulted me in every way she could possibly fathom, and so I just ignored her after apologizing. She called me a few hours later, apologizing for her behavior and then crying relentlessly. This, being way beyond my comfort level, had to end. So I told her I didn't want to speak to her anymore and that I wish her nothing but good fortune and luck. She then proceeded to yell at me for allowing her to cry, like that was my decision, and for being an asshole, her words. Then, she threatened to slash my tires, break all the windows on my car, and go to my place of work and tell everyone I raped her. Luckily this was all in text messages, which of course I saved and screenshotted. Oh, but it isn't over. I woke up for work a few days later, got in my car, and pulled out of my driveway. My street looks like a giant dong, with 2 circles at the end. Neighborhood legit looks like a dick. The roundabout on my left exiting my street has no exit. The right testicle leads to the main road. I check my left and I swear I see her in a car. Nah, couldn't be her. Nobody is that crazy. I pay no mind. Stop at the gas station, get my coffee, back in the car. I get to work and it's still dark out. I was opening the place up and I see the same car pull into the parking lot behind me. It's her. At this point, I know it's fucking her. I act like I don't see her, make sure the security cameras are on, call the cops and wait. She parked on the opposite side of my building, waited, and walked around the building to my car and just stood there like she was contemplating actually slashing my tires. She starts to walk away, evidently deciding that she isn't going to, and then turns back. Fuck, she's gonna do it. I rush out to stop her, fearful for my car and the fact that she might have a knife on her. And when I exit the building, the cops pull up. After a brief exchange with the police in which I show them the texts she sent me, she gets searched and they discover a hammer in the front pouch of her hoodie. She gets arrested. I have a fucked up story to tell my underling employees, and I get to wonder what I did that incited such bizarre behavior. Edit number 1. I would post a Google Earth image of my neighborhood, but given the nature of the above story, I would really rather not. I had the misfortune of being one girl's target when she knew some information about me. I'd rather not give folks a map of my exact location to all of Reddit, especially since this comment has blown up. Edit number 2. People are asking how she knew where I lived. We lived close to one another and she knew my town pretty well. So on our date when I stupidly divulged information such as my home's proximity to town landmarks, it wasn't a hard find. Additionally, she probably skipped the searching and googled my info. Edit number 3. Some folks love the ampersand. Some hate it. I never anticipated my liberal usage of and to be so hotly contested. If it makes you feel any better, I wrote 400 plus papers in college for myself and other students, and was forced to use and in all of those, it bothered me very much. Edit number 4. Calling my employees underlings has some people hot. If it makes you feel any better, the vast majority of my workforce were close friends of mine. So me calling them that was mostly for bants. It was a running joke within our group of friends and one they didn't have a problem with because outside of that, they knew I was taking care of them at work. Edit number 5. As popularly requested, a drawing of my neighborhood, map of my neighborhood, as popularly requested, IMG web page. Forgive my horrendous artistry and generally shitty scale. Edit number 6. Thank you for gold, beautiful stranger. You probably did nothing wrong. Some people are just crazy. Don't look to blame yourself somehow. I did initially but then came to the realization that she's just off a rocker. Most of these aren't even creepy. They're just sexual assault or plain scary. Yours is like a student horror film. The right testicle leads to the main road. I'd say you dodged a bullet but it's more like you dodged a hammer. Wish I got to this earlier. A girl that was obsessed with me had found a clip of me on YouTube, took a snippet of me laughing from the video and then set it as her message tone on her phone. I only discovered this as she wouldn't leave me alone at the beach one day and her phone went off. Messed up. I had a nurse come into my exam room. She saw I was struggling to tie my gown. She stood behind me, made the sound, and proceeded to stand behind me for a good 6-7 seconds before tying my gown. Then she just left. This is how the last porn clip I watched started. It should be taken seriously when it's done to anyone. Gender isn't important. I'm sorry you had to go through this. Back in 1992, I was dating this girl from Chile. She really liked ABBA. Before we would have sex, she would make me sing the song Take a Chance on Me while dancing naked. If I refused to do it, there would be no sexy time. Being 18 years old and really only able to think about one thing, I would sing the song and dance the dance. I hate disco. This was definitely weird but definitely hilarious Mayo. In time, he got preconditioned to only be able to perform after dancing to Take a Chance on Me while naked. Oh, honey, are you singing in the bathroom? Him. Intez no. At least it wasn't Dancing Queen. He was 18. Not 17 wouldn't work. See? THX. Listening to ABBA now. You hate disco if you change your mind. I'll be first in line. Broke up with a girl because I found out she was cheating on me with her ex. She locks herself in my bathroom and smashes a glass frame picture of us. Proceeds to slice her arm open with a shard. She tells me I'm doing this because you're leaving me, and there's nothing you can do about it. Joke's on her. I walk outside and call the cops. We are in college affiliated housing just off the campus. So the cops are there in seconds and they Baker act her. I thought that was the end of it. Nope. For the next couple months she shows up randomly at my apartment between 3 and 6 in the morning and bangs on my window. The way my apartment was designed was the first room's window was next to the front door. And of course that's the room I was in. Her goal was to see if I was with another girl. Most of the times not the case, but on those times I was. That was the last time I saw those girls. Lol. Then I see her in a local college bar one day. It's a pretty big bar, so I walk the other way and chill with my friends on the other side of the bar, hoping she didn't see me. Full disclosure, this is the hottest girl I've ever dated period, including my current fiancé. I mean 11/10 on any man's scale, and at best I consider myself a 7/10, so I done well. About an hour after I've been there, I go take a piss and see her talking to about 6 dudes and I don't think much of it. I'm just happy she didn't see me, but she didn't when I leave the stall. I'm immediately surrounded by those same clowns. They start going on about how she said I was abusive, and I immediately knew what was about to go down, knowing I couldn't fight my way out of this. I went the opposite route. I started overly congratulating the guys. Listen, I am so happy for you guys, she's hot, right? Oh man, who's gonna be the lucky guy to get his dick wet tonight? It definitely took them by surprise. The alpha asked me what my deal was, and I told him I was thrilled he was the next man up. I even tried to shake his hand, which definitely threw him off, but also gave me a moment to talk. I told him the brief backstory, and that I'd never laid a hand on her, and then I asked him why he thought she was wearing a long sleeve shirt when it was 99 degrees outside. It took him a second, but to his credit he picked up on what I was saying. He tells his boys to chill for a second and walks over to her. As she's now standing outside the bathroom, he asks her to lift up her sleeve, and she immediately starts crying. She storms over and throws her drink on me, and then runs to a bouncer and starts going off about how I grabbed her and tried to sexually assault her. Immediately I'm grabbed by bouncers, but lo and behold, Alpha and his crew stepped up and totally had my back, got in between me and the bouncers and point the finder at the girl. Told them they were about to beat my ass over her lies, but that I hadn't touched her, and had her ass tossed instead. A week later I filed a restraining order, went to court, had witnesses show up, including Alpha. Dude stepped up, even with his testimony that he and his boys were about to jump me at the end of the day because I wasn't in fear for my life, i.e., I didn't think she could kill me. The restraining order was denied, so for the next few years this girl showed up at my place randomly and there was not a thing I could do about it legally, until she married her ex that she cheated on me with. But still to this day, 6 years and 2 kids later, once a year I still get the random "hey, meet me downtown tonight" texts. If there is any happy ending to this, it's that the Alpha and myself became good friends through us both being Eagles fans. Had an ex-girlfriend confess that she liked to do sexual things to me in my sleep. I'm a very heavy sleeper, so I didn't wake up, and apparently she did it a lot. So not knowing what she did was sorta disturbing because she was very kinky. I told a girlfriend that would be okay once. She obliged and then got super mad when I groaned another girl's name. Sounds like bad time, but also hilarious. AWW man. I was the awkward teen girl. I grew out of it, mostly, so now I'm here, checking this thread with my fingers crossed, hoping none of these stories sound familiar to me. Tina? Up, time for the love of God, turn away or stop. The brakes, Tina. The brakes. Brakes, comma brakes. Well, socially awkwardness is something most teenagers experience, but there is a line that shouldn't be crossed when it comes to interactions. 26 here. When does the social awkwardness stop? When you realize that everyone else is socially awkward as well and just pretending to know what they're doing. So, awkward teen girl, we meet again. Hey, I like I like the cookies in the cafeteria. Haha. So, did you accept my request on MySpace, or don't? It's cool if you don't, or like, can I? Oh, never mind. I forgot what I was about to say. See you in English trips on foot, trying to walk away, while using asterisks for inner monologue actions. Watches her scuttle away like a drunken crab, chuckles to self and points browser to our creepy asterisks. Girl at Best Buy hid one me while I was there with my pregnant girlfriend. First time it has ever happened to me, and my girlfriend had to be right there. Oh hey, nice job carrying around a basketball on your stomach, you Huan's girlfriend. So I am going to ignore your girlfriend stealing watermelons if you have sex with me. A girl who lived in my dorm in college claimed someone attacked her on campus while she was walking back from evening classes. She ended up coming to my buddy and I first. Then we called campus police after explaining why it was a good idea. She asked me to come sleep in her dorm with her to help her feel safe. I obliged. So I spent the night on the floor while she was up in her lofted bed. Over the next couple days the investigation found the time she gave for the attack didn't show her on the camera of the area. She withdrew her statement and apologized. Admitted she was obsessed with me and my buddy and was desperate for our attention. After a few counseling sessions she apologized and we respectfully asked she not make contact with us moving forward. My buddy and I were definitely friendly and hung out with her in the commons several times, but neither of us had an interest in the way she wished before she faked being attacked. She went as far as to bruise her own neck and scratch her arms. She didn't claim she was raped but said the guy had a knife. She made the clams a couple days after another girl on campus was actually attacked in the same area and used a similar description that girl gave of the attacker. Couple years later my buddy looked her up, said she was doing okay now, in a healthy relationship. I kind of get the chills when I think about the night I slept on her floor, whether or not she was just watching me the whole night or doing anything weird. I had a cubicle mate rub hand lotion on me. I asked her not to bunch but she kept doing it, so I told her I would throw hot coffee on her if she did it again, and that seemed to get her to stop. Luckily she left that job a few months later. It rubs the lotion on its skin or it gets the hose again. Edit. Incorrect noun. In my defense, there was definitely a bucket in that scene though. A woman professed her love for me about 12 years ago via text. It was a very long text message and she said at one point, "I feel it might be weird for me to have said all of this, and I hope it doesn't weird you out." Nothing that was real scary until she pulled out all the stops to get me to come see her. Bought me tickets to sporting events she knew I liked. Bought me a monthly train pass so I could come see her. It became really creepy, enough that I was becoming afraid to bump into her, and prior to that I didn't feel that way at all. It went south real fast. The first text message was sent 25 years ago today. I'm sitting in a comfy chair in my uni student union working on a reading assignment. This girl, whom I don't know and have never seen before, comes right up to me and starts getting all up in my business. I mean, she's pretty much acting like a dancer at a strip club angling for some tips. She's whispering sweet nothings right in my ear, then proceeds to lick it. When it becomes apparent I'm not going to be getting all hot and bothered, she starts asking me what's up and if I'm gay or something. I just tell her I'm trying to get some reading done. She makes a few more attempts then coyly takes her leave. I started doing my work in the library after that. I'm promoting you to thought stopper first class. Keep up the work, trooper. Back in high school, I received a weird voicemail asking me to check my mailbox. I did when I took our dog out, and it was a letter written to me in toothpaste, from a girl that went to the other high school and I had literally never met or seen before. After a few more creepy messages, I called back and threatened to call the cops for stalking and harassment. Never heard back. Looked her up on Facebook and it turned out she already had children with an incredibly bland, alliterative name. Still no clue why she seemed to be obsessed with me, but I took my phone number off of Facebook pretty darn quick. Edit. Yeah, so to clarify on the toothpaste thing. Yes, toothpaste, like a mini tube of green kids toothpaste, squeezed out of the tube onto a sheet of paper to write some semblance of letters and words. The tube was also in my mailbox. I forget if the letter was folded up at all since the paper would have stuck to itself. It was just really weird and I wonder why anyone would think to do that aside from trying to come off as super creepy. My ex used to work in an office full of mostly women and they would constantly make comments and brush past him, ask to see his abs, or tell him how handsome he was. The Christmas party was a step too far and he quit because they were just constantly slapping his ass and so on. Some of them would even say what they'd do to him sexually, thinking it was funny. Not that it should matter, but they were all middle-aged and overweight. Edit. My last comment was added for two reasons. 1. To paint a picture of the scene for you, and 2. Because this is something both my ex and current fiancé have observed in this particular type of person a lot. Back in the 80s I once had to ask if anyone could give me a ride home from work and one of my female co-workers volunteered. We chatted amiably as she drove me home. She dropped me off and left. When I was inside my house I suddenly realized I never told her where I lived. I didn't give her any directions. She just drove me straight to where I lived, which was a long way from where we worked. Now that's disturbing. Honestly, this one is probably the creepiest one I've read so far. I mean, nowadays it'd still be creepy, but people are not so discreet about that kind of thing online. But in the 80s is a different story. I was raped pretty recently, so I'd say that's probably kinda creepy. A couple of months ago I went out to a club with a friend, who we'll call Jess, and some of her friends. Most of them I was friends with. A couple of them were new. One of those new people was from out of town and was staying over at my friend's place to hang out. She seemed cool enough. Let's call her Mara. Night goes on and we're drinking and dancing. Typical club stuff. One of my friends, labeled Dana, is buying me drinks as a payment for listening to her drunkenly complain about her personal drama. The whole time I'm thinking some of your problems are your own fault, but hey, free drinks. Eventually, we're both totally blitzed, talking shit about the guys she's had to deal with. In fact, everyone is blackout drunk, or close to it, except Mara. Finally, it's closing time and we all pack up in Jess' car and head home. Mara is driving since she's the only sober one. She drops everyone off one by one until it's just her, Jess and her boyfriend, and me. I can't remember what led to this, but we ended up dropping Jess and her guy off first. I think it was so they could have their fun in the time it took for Mara to take me home and come back. Can't quite remember. I do remember Mara walking me to my apartment and asking to come in because she didn't want to walk in on Jess doing her thing. Me, drunk beyond any critical thinking, went fair enough. You can hang out for a bit but I'm going to bed. Yes, I know that's dumb. But I was blitzed and she was friends with someone I trusted and didn't give off any suspicious vibes the entire night. So in she came. I gracelessly made my way to my room and crawled into bed while Mara was hanging out in the living room. My memory is spottiest here. I guess because of the combination of me being half asleep and pretty damn intoxicated. But I guess Mara somehow convinced me to let her crawl into bed with me because when I faded back in, there she was right next to me and she was showing me porn on her phone for some reason. I don't remember why she was or even how we got to the subject, but I just remember my last semi-lucid sentence being, Mara, you know I'm drunk as fuck right now and I'm gonna need you to be a responsible adult, before I fell asleep. Sometime during the night, I faded in and out of wakefulness, but woke up just enough to notice that Mara was touching me and having her way with me, but I wasn't quite conscious enough to react to it. The messed up thing is, she was still there chilling in bed next to me the morning after like she didn't just take advantage of me. She was trying to strike up some casual conversation. I was trying really hard to keep it together, but I didn't do a good job because she noticed my obvious discomfort and decided it was time to get Jessica back to her. I'm only just now finally at the point where I can openly talk about it without being derailed by visceral discomfort. I decided not to press charges or anything like that, because I know how invasive and ill-tastic rape cases can be in court and I didn't want to have to deal with that. I decided to just get a rape kit done and go to therapy. But yeah, the moral of the story is sometimes the world blindsides you with unpleasant shit that messes you up in unpredictable ways. I had a 20-minute conversation with a woman at an airport bar. Pleasant enough conversation. We were both a little flirty and she was attractive and seemed nice. I left to catch my flight and while I did sort of regret not getting her number, I didn't think much of it again. A couple of weeks later she showed up at my house banging on the door at 10 p.m. She had Facebook stalked me, which is acceptable I guess, but because I don't use Facebook very often, I didn't see or reply to her messages. So, like any sane person would do, she figured out where I lived, got on an airplane and came to confront me about the situation. At that point I was already way over the whole thing, but she was basically stuck in my city for the next 3 days until her return flight and she didn't have much money so I kinda had to let her stay with me. It was pretty awkward, but it wasn't all terrible. I mean, she was a nice girl and pretty as a peach, but I was just too weirded out. If she had written me a letter or waited until I saw her messages then we would probably be married right now. I couldn't get past the crazy stalker behavior though. Someone you met in passing stalked you over the internet, flew to your city, confronted you without warning at your home and you invited them to stay with you the next few days? That's already well within restraining order territory. See, the movies would have us believe things like this mean true love. This is perfectly acceptable in the movie world. This would be seen as a romantic show of affection. Like I said, it definitely weirded me out, but I never really felt threatened. If anything I just felt sad for her. She was in a bad situation and was maybe a little desperate for a change or needed help I guess. I also quickly figured out that she was almost debilitatingly shy. Opening up to a stranger in an airport bar was probably super out of character for her. I am just a pretty warm and friendly guy. I also travel a lot and so do well with strangers in those kinds of situations. I feel like she misinterpreted things and thought that there was something special between us, but really I just try to be friendly with everyone. I don't mean to make excuses for her. What she did was creepy and it was wrong to put a bunch of pressure on someone that she barely knew. I just couldn't bring myself to be mean to her. This may go a little beyond creepy. I had a girl get real handsy with me at a party. I was drunk, but I rebuffed her advances, albeit not very firmly. Then when I left the main room to get a drink, she pushed me up against a wall and kissed me without warning. When I said hey no I'm not interested, she got this supremely offended look on her face and left the party with her friends. I saw them looking back sourly at me as they left. God knows what she told them I did. From my experience, just rejecting a girl can be enough to have a whole group of girls hate you. She didn't have to lie about what you did. I had months of hell trying to get away from my crazy ex. I think she'd spent her whole life getting what she wanted, and when I broke up with her, it was like she couldn't comprehend it. She spent months turning up to my house, at first knocking on the door like we were still together. After a few weeks, when I started to ignore the door, she'd be at the glass. I'm playing on my Xbox and suddenly I notice she's there looking in at me. I became so anxious I left the house as little as possible because she'd always be waiting around the corner. She lived 3 miles away but couldn't drive, so must have been walking up or lying to her parents to get dropped off. I'd spend a few days in the house and think she can't possibly be there now. Go out for a walk and she would appear from round the side and grab me, so I couldn't go back in. I was so on edge. Eventually I called the police and gave reports, but she still came back. I stopped going out with friends for a very long time. Months later I was out for a special occasion and she pickpocketed my phone in a club. I noticed and tried to grab it back. She wanted to see if I was seeing any girls. She told a bouncer I hit her. He grabs me by the throat, no questions asked, and drags me upstairs backwards and throws me out. I couldn't speak for 2 days because of the damage to my throat. I'd been talking to an old female friend. Just normal conversation, but we both liked each other. This girl text and phone her. No idea what she said, but that girl never would speak to me again, and let me explain. I eventually went to court and showed hundreds of emails and texts to the judge, who gave a restraining order in my favor immediately. Unfortunately it was only for my address, so didn't help when I went out in public. There's so much more. It went on for about 9 months I think. It was pretty awful, but nobody takes it as seriously when it's happening to a male. For sure, if I'd have done to her what she'd done to me, there'd have been extremely serious consequences. Edit. I'm going to add a quick part 2 here before I go to bed, as people are asking questions and I feel really rude not answering everybody. It's weird telling all this to strangers when I don't think anyone in RL actually knows every detail like this. Part 2. During all of this I actually lost a really good job that I'd spent months and a lot of money training for. The reason being, I had been working on call for a company but they didn't need anyone else full time yet. I stopped answering my phone at some point so nobody could get in touch with me at all, even friends. Months later, someone from the company messaged me on Facebook and asked why I never came back after Christmas. I asked what he meant. Well, they had wanted me to start full time after Christmas, but I never found out about it as I never attempted to go through the hundreds of voicemails. Shortly after this I went to visit my sister for 2 weeks, who lives in another country. My phone still rang constantly until the battery ran out a few days in. I left it off naively thinking it would all be over by the time my trip ended. It wasn't. So after returning home I took a few contracts abroad and worked away for about 3 months in a couple of different countries. During this time I got texts saying I know where you and what you're doing and that she'd be waiting and so on. I was really puzzled as I'd blocked everything on Facebook and am not one to post much there anyway. It continued, and when I went home months later she texted saying I know you're back. I had no idea how. Turns out someone who I had been very good friends with for 10 years had a crush on her and was trying to get with her by giving her information about me. In return she was sending him pictures of herself to prompt him for more information whenever she wanted it, and he was screenshotting my Facebook and so on if I posted a picture from abroad. I found this out because I was at a friend's house and he was there, and I noticed he was texting someone by her name. I asked him and he said yeah it was her, but he'd had her number a long time. This didn't make sense because I knew she'd been paying to change her number as I'd been blocking her repeatedly. I got confirmation by logging onto her Facebook. Her password to everything was her surname and year of birth, and there they were having a live messenger chat, him asking if she was interested in him, her asking questions about me. I saved the whole conversation and still have it somewhere backed up. I went back to staying in for a few more months and things did die down once I cut off her source of information. I was out for my sister's birthday months later when sure enough she turns up and stands near our group. There were a lot of us so she couldn't do much as everyone formed a defensive circle. Very embarrassing for me. We all ended up moving to the other side of the bar to get away and enjoyed ourselves. That night stood where we moved to. I bumped into a girl I'd never met before and got talking to her. She's my girlfriend now and has been for 6 years, so there's the happy ending I wanted everyone who asked and showed concern to know about. Thank you all. If it weren't for us moving across the bar to get away from my ex, I may never have bumped into my girlfriend, so in a way she got us together. That was longer than I meant it to be, but it's quite good to tell the whole story, so thank you for adding friends. TLDR. By request. Extremely persistent ex would not take no for an answer. Stalked me over 12 months, always knowing where I was because a friend betrayed me and told her in return for nude pictures. I eventually found out and cut them out my life completely, and she ironically caused me to bump into my current girlfriend of over 6 years. Edit 2. I really must do this. Thank you so much to whoever gave me my first gold. I think I could have told the story better as I had just finished a 12-hour night shift when I typed this, but your appreciation means a lot and I'm glad I shared all of the kind messages, especially those saying that reading my story helped them because they went through similar are really nice to read. I will reply to every single person who asked a question. I'm flattered that people would pay such an interest in my life. You're all very kind. Thank you again. Oh my god, that is absolutely terrible. I am so sorry this happened to you. Edit. I posted this before the edits, but I hope you and your GF that you met in the bar are doing great. I'm really sorry. It's just as scary and damaging when it happens to a male. Jesus Christ, that's fucking insane. An older lady mid-30s to early 40s told me, 16 gay male, that she could turn me straight while I was working on another client's PC at a repair shop. My wife and I just went to see it shortly after her birthday. I was cooking in the kitchen and she pushed a red balloon into the kitchen. I turned around and it was rolling towards me on the floor. That's a good wife you got. One of the few wholesome creepy actions on this thread. I mean, it's not creepy, but it was pretty weird. I was 19. Working making toasted sandwiches. It was, say, midnight, and this girl I know had a friend with her, so we were all hanging. It's since occurred to me that the friend, Amy, probably had a thing for me. They were both pretty drunk, and Amy came behind the counter thing and asked for a bite of the toastie I was eating. Don't tell my boss. So I said okay, and she, attacked the bottom of this baguette with her mouth, gobbling it up and whatnot. Then she said I get so slutty when I'm drunk and went back to the other side of the counter. I was real confused at the time, though now I realize that was just her painful attempt at drunken flirting. Still, she was attractive. Edit. Sorry to disappoint, but no, I did not bang her. Haha, that's honestly pretty hilarious. I can just imagine a few people glancing over and seeing a random girl just gnawing at the bottom of a loaf of bread. Should have also finished off with a, I loaf you too as she was walking away. One of my buddies had sex with a girl in college. About an hour after they had sex, she killed herself in his apartment while he was asleep, cut her wrists in his bathtub. He said he got up to pee in the middle of the night and thought she left. Had no clue she was sitting in the tub, maybe 3 feet away from him while he pissed. He didn't know her well, but it really fucked with him for a very long time. Edit. Holy crap. Thanks for the gold. Thanks for all of the comments and karma. Thanks to that girl for offing herself so I could get all this internet attention. And thread. Seriously, I was having a few giggles, then WTF. Seriously, anger turd, and this can't be back to back. It's the second post now, so I barely even got to the giggles. It'll be number 1 soon, and the giggles will cease entirely. That's really fucked up. I actually had a similar, if less extreme, experience. Earlier this year I met a lady on a dating app. Blah blah blah. Drinks, sex, blah blah. 2 days later I get a text, thank you for taking good care of me and being a complete gentleman at all times. I am in the hospital again. I'm going to die. I found out a couple of weeks later that she had not, in fact, died. She'd been in a psychiatric hospital. Reading between the lines, I suspect she attempted suicide. Fucked me up for a while. I think I need a drink just writing that out. Why am I in this thread right now? One of my buddies had sex with a girl in college. Oh, sounds like a good story. I'll read on most death. About an hour after they had sex she killed herself in his apartment while he was asleep. Okay. Bedtime. You know damn well you kept scrolling. That's fucked up, man. The whole thing. I hope he's okay. On a much lesser note, I hooked up with a girl who was raped a few days later during a different hookup. She confided in me. We talked for 6 hours. Then she blocked me and never spoke to me again. It was kinda distressing. I just hope she's okay. She was really awesome and interesting and wholesome, and it just all sucks. I was 15, 26 now, and just got my first job at one of the large supermarket chains. A new employee started a few months later. She was 35 years old. One day I get a message saying it's Sarah. I'm doing a drive-by. I was confused, and the next message came through saying I'm outside your house, you fucker. Apparently she got my number and address from the work contact book. I told her I wasn't home and was at the train station. Next thing I know, there she was. Things got weirder after that. I would get random text messages on Saturday nights saying she's naked playing Twister and I should come over. She would ask me to rate how hot she is out of 10. Some people at work caught on to what was happening, and Sarah confronted me one time asking why I told anybody about those messages and saying there was nothing wrong with her. She was just being friendly. Although she very quickly followed that up with saying she kinda had a crush on me. I was too young to fully understand the implications of what she was doing and how wrong it was. At the time I just thought it was weird, but was never too bothered or scared by it. Looking back, I definitely should have made a bigger deal about it so that it didn't happen to anybody else in future. She ended up getting fired, rightfully so. One takeaway from this thread is that there are a lot of people out there, men and women, whose mating instincts are way off. Grade 1. Some girl chased me down at recess, shoved me to the ground, and started making out with me. A few of my friends had to pry her off me. Grade 2. She finally apologizes via a letter. The end of the letter says I'll do it again someday. Grade 6. I leave the school. Grade 11. Some girl chases me down at lunch, shoves me to the ground, and starts making out with me. I didn't get her name, but I'm really quite sure it's the same person. So that happened. Same thing happened to me. No friends though, so I cracked her forehead with a rock. Left me alone ever since. Edit. I feel like I should mention, she wasn't severely hurt the next few months. She had a very visible scar along her forehead, but it healed quickly. It's super effective. Holy shit. Dude. If I know anything about Asian ghost stories, this dude either dodged a bullet or is totally screwed. I had a girl come into my room and try to have sex with me when I was passed out drunk. Didn't even find out it until a long time after it happened. I found out through my girlfriend at the time, when we're having an argument because she found out a close friend of mine and I had sex one time and I never told her about it. She then started asking about other girls I hooked up with that we hung out with, and I told her that she was the only one. That's when she said, "Don't lie to me." What about? I seriously had no idea what she was talking about, and then she told me the story she heard about before we started dating, because they were friends. Apparently, one day the two of them and another friend were on a porch swing that was in the middle of our quad. They saw me walking to the cafeteria and my girlfriend made a comment about how she thought I was attractive. That's when the other girl started almost bragging about when she went to my room to hook up with me in my room, and she started giving me a blowjob, but left because she couldn't get me to stay hard. The way she told it made it seem like I wanted it and just had whisker dick. But the truth is that I have no memory of this happening and would have never wanted to have sex with her. I did not find this girl attractive at all and found her pretty annoying. Creeps me out thinking about it, and the fact that she possibly could have done it to more people. Edit. For those of you saying what if she was just lying, I honestly don't think she was. She knew that I was uncircumcised, and I had also seen her at parties trying to make out with guys that were way drunker than her. What a terrible sexual assault. Taking advantage of a person's vulnerability. I'm sorry this happened to you. Thanks. Luckily I had a great girlfriend at the time. She had someone try to force himself on her before we dated, so she was really understanding about the whole thing. Both of these situations are terrible, and I'm glad you two were on the same page about the whole thing. At the same time, I should think a person would be understanding of someone else's sexual assault without having to be sexually harassed assaulted themselves. As in, Your GF should be understanding even if she hadn't experienced something similar. Again, not trying to undermine your story, but just some commentary on anyone who is not understanding with these things. This was in kindergarten or first grade. We were sitting in the library being read to by our teacher, and the girl stuck her tongue in my ear. I asked her to stop and she wouldn't. She didn't stop despite my protestations and squirming until we both got in trouble by our teacher. Maybe not creepy, but it's always stuck with me as something that was very odd and off-putting. Edit. Off-putting has a hyphen. This happened a few years ago. My oldest brother married this terrible woman who we will call Jennifer. Jennifer had a very strange younger sister named Sarah. Sarah didn't come around our family for the first year or so of the marriage, and I am not sure why. I remember very clearly when she did though, because she was extremely flirty with me. At the time, I was about 16 and she was in her early 20s, so there was definitely an age difference, and I was definitely not legal yet. I kind of ignored it for a while, until she started showing up every weekend. Sometimes she would grope at me, and other times she would just be satisfied with staring at me with a really weird expression on her face. Jennifer often enabled her, putting us in situations where we would be alone at the house together. One day I was out at lunch, and I started getting texts from Sarah. I didn't give her my phone number, and she was talking about how she would love to take my virginity. I didn't answer, because holy shit, right? And over the course of the next hour or so I got a series of messages. First, she was talking about coming over to see me. Then, she asked me to let her in the house. I guess that someone let her in, because then I got selfies of her laying in my bed, undressing. She didn't like it when I wouldn't come home to sleep with her. I tried my best to avoid her, and finally my brother divorced Jennifer for unrelated reasons. That was a great relief, because I never saw Sarah again. TLDR, sister-in-law likes the bad touch. Edit. Why am I getting shit for not having sex with my rappy sister-in-law? It's a bad look. You see that, right? Did you ever tell your brother about that? I told him that she was inappropriate, but I didn't go into the details. It's a weird conversation to have. It fucking sucks. These conversations are weird to have, for both men and women. This kind of thing is definitely not okay and, barring actually calling the police if necessary, needs some serious reprimanding. Not allowed near the family anymore, etc. When I was about 24 I had a female co-worker in her 50s show up to work one day with a bunch of nice clothes she had bought for me. I tried to refuse them, but she insisted I take them. Edit. I was already well dressed. These were casual clothes that could not be worn to work. She did not have kids my age. She flirted with me quite often. My girlfriend at the time was not happy about it. How would this have been perceived by others if the genders were reversed? I want to go on the record that I am very happy with all these powerful men being exposed for harassing women. But it happens quite often the other way around and nothing is ever done. Men are expected to deal with it and move on. A not so subtle hint that you had a subpar wardrobe. Maybe you didn't include any other pertinent information in the original post. I was simply guessing since I've had ill-fitting clothes for most of my life, as I expect men to do. I've bought women clothes before when they couldn't afford to buy any themselves, though never someone I didn't have a friendship with. I honestly don't think it's weird at all, in any case, to help out someone in need. Probably, I've met a few older women that go into like mom mode over the most random things. Man, I've got nothing compared to the rest of these guys. Probably the time when I caught one of my co-workers taking an unsolicited picture of me. When I asked her about it she just shrugged and said that her eye candy was leaving. Please lady, I know I'm not eye candy, at best I'm interesting looking. A woman, 18. I was dating when I was younger, 19. Begged me not to leave her. She begged, cried, and did all of the normal teenage techniques, but then it took a turn for the weird. She stopped crying, deadpan looked me in the eyes, and said she would let me take her virginity if I didn't leave. Needless to say, I left and didn't look back. I went on a semi-blind date with a woman, left a note on my car at my work, and due to lack of sex, I called the number, met her for coffee, and she had a bit of a sketchy story, so I noped out of the situation. Cue the stalking. I was able to avoid her for a while, but since she knew where I worked, she kept asserting herself. I worked in a job where the public had access to the building. It finally came to a head when she left a greeting card on my vehicle. I forget the exact words, but the picture on the front was a person tied to a chair with rope and gagged. I went to my manager, who was the MVP in this scenario, and banned her from the building. All the while this was going on, I had to tell my then girlfriend that a crazy stalker from my past was again in my life. The way she was acting gave me fear. Co-worker at a diner told me she was leaving her boyfriend for me, just out of the blue one day. Said it in front of the cooks, manager, and 2 customers. Barely knew her. Had worked with her for 4 months on rotating shifts. Minimal actual contact or dialogue between us. Didn't even know her last name. I was pretty rowdy at that time, but I was always quiet at work, and I kept to myself. Thought maybe she was screwing with me or her boyfriend was in earshot and she was trying to fuck with him. Got home that night and she was standing outside my apartment with a suitcase. No idea how she got my address. I told her to go home and she quit the diner the next day. It was super weird. I was dragged into the manager's office and interrogated twice. Tried to explain that I had no clue what was going on. About a week later, either her boyfriend or ex showed up with 2 of his friends in the parking lot and kicked the shit out of me as I was leaving work. To this day I'm still confused about the whole thing. Edit. Jesus Christ guys. This happened in Northeast Arkansas in 2006. The girl was white, brunette, pretty I guess. The guys that kicked my ass were Hispanic. I had not slept with her. I had barely even spoken to her, and when I did it was to coordinate tables at work. By hot-blooded and honor culture, I don't mean that I just lashed out at everyone, though I did tend to pick fights if myself or my friends were being disrespected. I mostly mean that I never backed down or attempted to resolve anything with words if someone challenged me. I lost every fight I was ever in. I was living on the fringe at that point. I did drugs. Hell, I lived with a drug dealer for a year. I was a piece of shit back then, basically, but I never hurt anyone but myself. My warrants all stemmed from 2 unpaid parking tickets that stacked up with FTAs, failure to pay fines, failure to complete community service, 15 warrants in all at one point. Nothing violent, nothing drug related. I'm not crazy. I was never a part of any fight club. Edit. I'm not insanely attractive. I'm pretty average. Yeah, I don't get it, either. I hope you press charges. That sounds really awful. Had a number. When I say I was rowdy in my early 20s, I mean there were warrants for my arrest rowdy. I was also very used to fighting and getting my ass kicked, because I was hot-blooded and honor culture. The unsettling thing was that it just happened so fast, and was so unexpected. I guess I was just a convenient target for this girl's issues with her boyfriend or whatever. I still don't know, really. I had a similar but less shirty ending. My lab partner had the hots for me and basically told her friends she was going to break up with her boyfriend the minute I asked her out. Problem was that she seemed to be an airhead and I didn't want anything to do with her outside of lab. Fast forward to the end of the semester. She shows up the last day of class in a dress and makeup and told me she had waited long enough and it's that time. I said I had to go and she broke out in tears. From thereafter I became too well known in my small college. When do the shirts go away? When I was 13, almost 14, I had an 18-year-old girl in the town adjacent to mine for some reason become infatuated with me. I was dating aka hanging out at the mall, the little sister of her friend, and I have no idea how, but this 18-year-old decided she was into me. Never really found out why. She invited me over one night when her parents were gone and I obliged. She said she was having friends over. I convinced my parents I was visiting a friend who lived a few blocks away and had them drop me off there. I walked to her house where I found out the party was just me and her. When my friend didn't answer my phone call, I went and got drunk on Captain Morgan while we watched the movie Orgasmo. We apparently had sex after I passed out. Was my first time drinking, and the next morning, when her parents returned, I was pretty sick. She tried to say she had me come over to take care of me, that she found me drunk. Her parents, astutely, told my parents what happened and that they thought their daughter got me drunk and raped me. My parents didn't get the cops involved. Instead they had my pastor explain to me how terrible I was for having sex. It was awful. That's how I lost my virginity. My family had just moved to Florida and the neighbor girl invited herself over to swim in our pool the first day we were in the house. She was pushy, and my mom was non-confrontational. so she basically came over whenever she wanted. She was constantly groping at me and trying to get me over to her place when her parents weren't home. She was my age, which was cool, but we were 11-12, which was totally not. Smacked my ass in high school. She said I wasn't very good looking, but I had a very fine ass. I didn't know what to say. I never prepared myself for that type of situation. Around 18, bad a one night stand with someone from a nightclub. Next morning both go separate ways on understanding it was drunken fun, both got each other's number, blah blah. 2 weeks later I get a text saying I am 20 weeks pregnant and it's yours. I tried to explain the obvious time difference but she was quite adamant. Forced blowjob from who I thought was a friend while I was too drunk to say number. Ex I'd broken up with a year earlier broke in when she saw a girl leave my house. I wake up to her trying to mount me, get angry and screamed what the fuck or something, and she said I just wanted to see if I could still have you. 29-year-old I went on like 3 dates with when I was 17, kept calling my sister to see how I was doing for 5 years after I blocked her number. All diff women. Lots more stories. I attract creeps, male and female, and worked a lot in bar service hospitality. I flirted with this girl who got too serious too fast, so I talked to her and told her we were looking for different things, which she understood. Couple days later I left work and it was snowing and she drew a heart in the snow on my car. I never told her what kind of car I drove and we worked at completely different times. Were you sure it was her? Maybe another co-worker was messing with you? My mate and I are at a bar in Maui. Order a couple shots of whiskey. Gal slides over next to me. Hey, why don't you get one more of those for me and then I take you home and molest you. A lab partner in college had a bunch of photos of me as a collage as her background. I passed outside at a party once and woke up to a girl unzipping my pants. Had a girl who I wouldn't date speed circles around my block shouting at me every time she passed my place. Had a girl walk up to me and lick my face once. About to eat on a vacation with my family to the Oregon coast when I was 19 or so. Eating in a seaside restaurant. I was pretty unimpressed with the food I ordered, so I had pushed the bowl away and was sitting back from the table. Waitress. Older lady walks over, sees this and rubs my stomach and asks if I'm full. This happened this year, in early August to early October. I'm in my sophomore year, and I'm in my school's marching band. There's this one freshman girl who I am sure was, and still is, into me. She was giving hints, but I like someone else. I'm not trying to get into a relationship, so this wouldn't be so bad if she weren't also in my section. She plays saxophone, just like I do, and we had to spend a lot of time together. I use the bathroom during practice. She tags along. I still don't know how she explained that to people. I sit somewhere. She sits right next to me. This goes on for about 2 months. But this isn't necessarily the creepy part. The creepy, and kind of sexual assault-ish, part is that, starting in October, even when there were people around, she would grope my ass and whisper things like, "Damn, you got hella cake." Luckily for me, there are 9 other girls in my section, and 3 of them, 1 junior, 2 sophomores, saw her being weird like this. So, in order to rectify the situation, they talked to me about it. I told them I wanted to punch the shit out of her, and they decided that they would do something about it. I still don't know what they did, and she didn't have any visible scratches or bruises, but she hasn't spoken to me since. TLDR. Clingy freshman girl in marching band likes being really close to me, starts grabbing my ass in school, gets caught by girls in my section, and most likely got cursed out. That isn't sexual assault-ish. That's just straight up sexual assault. Damn, you got hella cake. I don't understand kids' vernacular these days, but cake, even if there is a lot of it, doesn't sound pleasant. Late to the party, but I actually have something to add. I was the closing manager at a grocery store last year. My closer, we'll call her Teresa, was a 35-year-old woman who would sexually harass me every night. I am 21 at the time and apparently fit her bill for prey. My manager had told me not to go anywhere alone with her, which led me to ask why he even scheduled her with me. Seems logical. Anyways, she would tell me the nastiest college stories about her and her 3 male roommates. It got to the point where I told her to shut up and I'd be writing her up. Near the end of my grocery store career, she became pregnant with her then boyfriend. I think this dude knew she had the hots for me because whenever he came in he was a total asshole to me. Anyways, I get a text a couple of months ago. I was probably 6 months removed from the store and haven't heard from Teresa or anything about her since. The text said, Teresa's boyfriend broke up with her because of what she named her kid. You'll shit your pants when I tell you. She named him my name. I was repulsed. It was a type of feeling I can't quite explain. A type of disgust I'd never felt, being male and sexual harassment not being as common compared to females. I hope I never see her again and I hope her kid sucks. Edit. S. I obviously don't hope the kid sucks, that's awful. Well, there was the one time a girl at my high school forced her way into my house and raped me. I can't go into detail because the PTSD is still really prevalent even after almost 4 years. This same girl spent the entire 4 years we were at the same middle and high school at obsessing over me. She was one of those really weird emo girls with bleached blonde hair and insisted people call her melancholy or just Mel and would get offended when people called her by her real name. She was always with really shitty guys, like sexually and or verbally abusive. So I felt bad for the first year or two. But the first year we knew each other she tried to set me up as her next BF because her current one would be moving away 2 months later. Military teen life, yay. Nope, the fuck out of that. I started dating another girl while she was still with said BF she wanted me to replace, and she messaged me unfriended and then proceeded to pretend I didn't exist even when we were in the same room for class and shit. Then the first semester of the following freshman year we had 2 classes together and she would physically and verbally abuse me in front of my GF sitting right next to me. Like, pulling my hair out specifically for the purpose of making me cry, stabbing me with mechanical pencils so the lead broke off inside my skin, still have a scar from that one, and making fun of my religion at the time in literally every class period. Ex-Mormon here. She switched out of the classes cause she was failing them and I didn't hear from her until the next summer when my GF left and we had split. She would come over and we'd sit on my front porch and I'd listen to her bitch about her shitty guy problems because no one else would, and I still pitied her at the time. One of those days that summer when my family was gone was when she tried to rape me in my own home. Not fun. When school started at the end of that summer, within a month she had already told basically the whole school about how she dominated me in my own home and other shit like that, and I had to fight off name calling and questioning and all sorts of bullshit the next 2 years I was at that school. She hardly ever spoke to me again outside of the occasional school event when we were forced to interact, and she would try to hook up with me again and I literally fucking ran one time. And I would catch her talking shit about me to other people even after we had gone months without talking. She ruined my reputation, my friendships, my mental health, basically my entire life at that school. I'm still haunted by everything she did to me and I still get triggered anxiety attacks whenever I hear words or whatever shit that I still associate with her, and I haven't even seen her in over 3 years. It's really bad. I don't know why I spent half an hour typing all this out cause I know it'll get buried and no one will read it. But at least I can cry myself to sleep knowing that maybe someone can ease my mind when I wake up from the nightmares tomorrow. Wow, that was fucking cringy, but I'll post it anyway, fuck it. Edit. Jesus, fuck, this really blew up overnight. I didn't expect anyone to see this. I'm actually in tears. Thank you all so much for the kind words and support you've offered. I think it would be in vain to try and personalize an answer to all of your comments, so I'll just add more here and hope everyone sees it. I've been to therapy off and on for the past few years and I'm doing a lot better. The attacks still come by, just not nearly as often and hardly as intensely, so I'm able to manage it better. But there's always something that brings the memory of her back and I fucking hate it. But at least I can very well manage it now. My anxiety is bad and I'm terrible at reaching out to people, so please don't be offended if you offer to listen and I don't message you. I'm just hella awkward and sometimes don't like talking very much. To everyone else in this thread and that replied to me that have been through something similar, whether easier or far worse, we stand together as survivors. Things were shitty and they might still be now, but all it takes is a little help and some time, and as cliche as it sounds, things will get better. I know from experience. Stay strong, brothers and sisters. Edit 2. Holy fuck, thanks for breaking my Reddit gold virginity 3. I read your story, man. A girl beat me up once because I didn't like her and she had a crush on me. I didn't hit her back, but it was very humiliating. Don't let that piece of shit influence how you feel. It's not worth it. She'll hate her life forever. You don't need to. I had a girl threaten to kill herself because I rejected her at a French immersion camp when I was 16 or so maybe. She called one of her friends and said she was going to swallow all of her Ritalin bottle because of me. So the friend calls the cops and they kick down the door. She's sitting there crying with a couple of empty pill bottles on the floor. Friend calls me and tells me what a pose I am. And I tell her to chill because she didn't have any pills left. She says yes because she swallowed them all. The girl told me she was on her last couple pills the day before all of this and she wouldn't have any more for a week or so. A few people ended up hating me after that, but the trip to the hospital confirmed that she in fact did not swallow any pills. Not really creepy, morbid maybe. Passed out drunk at a house we always partied at back when I was 18. Woke up to an Anna wanking on my limpy. The chick had an army boyfriend on leave and had never shown any form of attraction towards me in the dozens of times I partied there. I noped the fuck out of there and grabbed my buddy and headed out to my car on a snowy winter night about 2 AM. As I'm pulling out of the driveway, I flip the headlights on and lo and behold, crazy chick is standing in the middle of the road, nothing but a bra and a towel wrapped around her waist. She tries to wave me down and yell something and in her desperate attempt she loses the towel. The blackest bush I've ever seen. It was like a fucking cat. I thought I was watching it all happen on cable TV, where they censor it and leave the good stuff up to the imagination. Except it was real and I was driving towards it like a black hole. It was so icy out so I yanked the e-brake and whipped a 180 and took off the other way. Never talked to her again but me and my buddy still talk about it any chance we reminisce. Edit. I had been sleeping for about 3 hours when I woke up so I wasn't shit-faced. Still not a great idea to drive while impaired. I'm 100% against drunk driving period, but again I had never been in a situation where I felt violated and boy does it sober you up. Thanks for the kind words about my writing style and the support from the incident. Reddit is a cool place sometimes. Nana wanking on my limpy, you have a special way with words. I went to a family party with my sister when I was 17 and one of her friends got really drunk. She told me to pull my shirt up and show her my abs. I said no so she came over and lifted it. I kept pushing her away to the glee of everyone at the party. She wouldn't stop touching me and everyone thought it was hilarious including her husband. Super creepy situation. While attending university, I was stalked by a 5 feet tall middle-aged Asian woman who was built like an 11-year-old boy. Sounds funny, but this lady was creepy as all hell. Our introduction was relatively normal. She approached me at my locker and invited me to spend New Year's at her hotel room with her after our first 5-minute conversation. I did not take her up on the offer. One night, I was at school real late, 10 PM, and I had some cans of food in my locker that I didn't want. So I threw them away in a garbage can nearby. I want to stress, as far as I could tell I was the only person around at this time. The next night, she comes up to me holding the cans I threw out in her hand and says, "Corey, why you waste this perfectly good food? People will eat this food. I don't like to be nagged." So I tersely said, "I have to go. Bye," and walked away from her. Bye. I heard her say softly behind me. I could tell she was staring at me. A few hours later, I found a note was slipped inside my locker from her, written in broken English, further scolding me for my waste, and ending with a dramatic bye forever. I was starting to get pissed. One night about a week later, I went into an empty classroom to study. Again, as far as I could tell I was entirely alone. Now, you ever have those moments when you remember a long lost friend you hadn't thought of in 5 years and you wonder how they are doing? Well, I had a moment like that just then. So I open up my computer, Google my old friend's name, and find out she killed herself the year prior. The newspaper article had her picture. It was definitely her. I was stunned. I couldn't breathe. I actually got up and started pacing around, trying to absorb the shock. Just then, guess who walks in the classroom? Exclamation point. Yup, crazy Asian lady. How I didn't immediately strangle her, I'll never know. But she apologized for the note she sneaked into my locker, then tried to casually ask me my full name. Full of anger and pain, I snapped at her. "I am not telling you my full name. I don't know you." She turns around and slowly starts walking away, then whips her head around, her face bearing a sinister grin and says, "Whatever problem you are having, I shall not help you with. I shall not help you. I shall not help you. I don't want your fucking help." I want you to leave me alone, I say firmly as she walks out the door, giggling and saying I shall not help you while staring at me with that grin the entire time. I guess she got the message, because I didn't see her for the 6 weeks left in the semester, after which I graduated. But this incident made me not pursue the women I like as strongly as I did beforehand. I'm too afraid of making them feel what I felt. I can't help but wonder what happened to those cans of food. What the food? What dude? Meet a woman and within a few hours she asked if we could be BFGF and 20 minutes later asked if I would want to have a baby with her. Was creeps the fuck out. Then she told me not long after her dad used to rape her. Told her to seek help and got the hell out. Edit. I'm not changing it, haha. Creeps the fuck out. Just say you like very thin pancakes. Jesus, I'm reading these half for amusement and half because being way too self-conscious and aware of my classic social retardation. I'm here hoping I won't read something I've ever done. Safe to say I haven't stalked, molested, harassed, become a Klingon. If anything it's the opposite. Vulcan feels over here. Or left a poop on a stoop, a shit on the street or turd in the toaster. I'm just quite awkward and shy around guys I like, or people in general. So I fear I might come across as a fucking weirdo. Edit. Ignore the username. Well, I've been raped by one. I suppose that's creepy. For a more harmless story though, in elementary school a neighbor of a girl would sit in the front yard and wait for me to come outside to profess her love for me. She'd leave gifts and notes in the mailbox and stuff too. I started leaving the house out the back and climbing the fence into my neighbor's yard to leave from the next street over to avoid her. I've never told anyone this, but this girl totally masturbated next to me on a bus one time. This was about 6 years ago and I was 19 at the time and I think she was about the same age as me or a little older. I was going to school at a local community college and I had seen her around on campus a few times, as well as on the city bus I took to and from school. On the day that this happened I was running late and I still had a little bit of homework to finish before class. I figured I would finish the homework on the bus because the ride usually took about 15 minutes. I got on the bus and found an empty seat by the window. Nobody was sitting next to me so I had enough space to pull out my textbook and notebook and finish my homework. About 15 minutes into the bus ride a young, fit, attractive young woman got on and sat in the aisle of seats across from mine. At the time I wasn't paying her or anyone else much attention. In fact the only reason I remember her at all is because of what she did next. 10-15 minutes go by, I'm working on reading the last assigned chapter in my textbook, and I notice this girl get up from and move from the empty row of seats she was sitting in, and she proceeds to write next to me. I didn't know why she did this because there are at least 7 better seats on that bus, and she already had a window seat to herself, but whatever. So she sits down and doesn't say anything or do anything at first, which is completely normal, so I don't think much of it at first. I just get back to doing my homework. Next thing I know she pulls out a textbook of her own and starts thumbing through it like she's looking for a specific chapter. So I think okay cool, we're doing the same thing. So she won't likely distract me from the homework I'm trying to do. Things then start to get weird. She starts holding her textbook in all of these goofy ways. First she has it balanced on her knee, and she's kinda fumbling it around. Next she starts trying to hold it up against the back of the seat in front of us, which is just weird looking. So I'm thinking something is either off with her, or she's high on something, or she just really wants to get my attention in the weirdest possible way she could think of. So I finally decide to say something. I ask her, you okay? You look like you don't enough space there for your book, which she does BTW. She says nothing in response, but she just kinda smirks at me. So I go back to ignoring her because by now the bus is maybe 10 minutes away from the campus and I am very far behind on my homework. Next thing I notice out the corner of my eyes I see she is rubbing her crotch. Just rubbing away like she isn't on a city bus in a major metropolitan city surrounded by college kids and old people. I almost don't believe what I'm seeing. Like maybe I'm imagining this very attractive girl sitting right next to me isn't actually rubbing her vagina. Because that would be crazy. She is though. She's really going at it too. Like heavy breathing and little quivers and moans. So I'm stunned like I'm not moving at this point and my heart is pounding because this is a genuinely new experience for me. I've been with a few girls at this point, so it wasn't like I didn't know how to get on with a girl. It was just the weirdness of it all. My brain just froze up like I didn't know what was okay for me to do in this situation. So she's now getting off, I guess. I'm sitting there looking around while nobody else seems to notice this. And then she grabs my arm and just starts holding my hand. She's interlocking her fingers around mine and just holding my hand down on the seat with hers. I'm still staying still just watching this happen. The bus then gets to the campus. This is the last stop on the route, so we all get up to leave the bus. She gets up, grabs her bag and walks off. And I just sit there for a minute like what the hell just happened. It was weird and creepy, but also like really intense. I don't know what she was thinking or why she did this, and I guess it wasn't really horrible or anything to go through. She definitely was attractive and I would have totally been thrilled if she had just come up and said hi or said something like, hey, you're finishing your homework on the bus too? Same here, but instead she just wanted to do the female equivalent of jacking off next to a stranger on the bus while making weird inappropriate physical contact with them. So let this be a lesson to you all. No matter what your gender, age, attractiveness, or ethnicity, everyone, and I do mean everyone, can be a total creepy creep. So try not to be one. I know I learned a lot from the experience and it honestly made me appreciate a side of life that I had never really experienced before. Not insane, but our lady, probably in her 40s, said, "Smile sweet, you're a very cute boy," and I suddenly empathized with girls around the world. That made me really uncomfortable really fast. Dated a girl for 6 months. She painted a full wall-sized mural of me in her parents' house. I was a rent, or tree, holding her like a baby. A week later, I dumped her and she called saying she cut herself and was bleeding everywhere. So I called her an ambulance. The ambulance showed up at my house with her and she said she won't let them take her to the hospital without me. Turns out it was only cat scratches with a butter knife. As someone who has fought suicidal depression my entire life, I fucking hate people who use suicide threats as emotional manipulation. Boy, do I have a story for you. I was housed in a young person's mental health ward for a couple of months. There was a girl in there, let's call her Caitlin, who claimed to have a boyfriend Tom who had been on the ward before her. Cool, I guessed. Being braggadocio, she gave Tom's SC to everyone on the ward. Now, this other girl Sophie started talking to him, and they got a connection. This is when Tom revealed that Caitlin had been cutting herself and threatening him with suicide everyone he tried to break it off, and it was crushing him. She constantly made horrible comments to Sophie such as that Tom made me self-harm, look knowing full well that Sophie was Tom's unofficial GF. Caitlin cut herself on her breasts and showed it to Sophie and it crushed her, to the point she self-discharged even though she didn't feel safe at home. She had also sent nudes from the community attached to the desk in the main hallway tablets to threaten Tom. This ended up with Tom attempting suicide and being taken to hospital. She'd still constantly bragged to staff and other patients about it before and after this. Sophie left and I was discharged, which I don't feel was good for me. So I'm not 100% on the situation. I'll ask Sophie about it if anyone wants to know. What? No EMT of any standard would drive a patient to someone else's house in order to convince them to go to hospital. They are not a taxi service, nor are they slaves to the whims of someone they are treating. Who are all these women who grope random men? How common is this? Do most guys get groped by a woman at some point? Ick. Almost every guy I know has a story about being groped by a woman at some point. Just as almost every woman I know has a story about being groped by some guy. I never learned proper boundaries is gender neutral. Apparently, I was in 10th grade. A senior girl I had spoken to only once found out where I lived. She came over to my house and asked if we could talk in my room. She laughingly said, "Lay down 10." She climbed on top of me and said, "I can't believe I am doing this," as she fumbled my dick, already hard, out of my pants. She was in a skirt with no underwear and she sat on it. I did not say no because I was curious to know what sex was like. She got about 2 moves on before I came in her. He said, "That's it," and left. A few weeks later I got a terrible burning pain. She had given me gonorrhea. Classmate called me daddy and said that she should sleep over at my house. Hell no bitch, stay away. Luckily my math teacher understands stuff like this and will never put us together. I work as a nurse assistant. I am a dude. I have had many female co-workers try to do stuff to me. I have had 2 try to kiss me while taking care of a patient. I have had my ass grabbed by women who are in relationships. I have had proposals for 6, threesomes, gangbangs. It's insane what happens in a woman-dominated field. Was dating a woman who considered herself a writer and an intellectual. Every time we rented or watched a movie that turned out to maybe have a rape or sexual assault, she would turn it off because rape is too serious to be fictionalized or some shit. I may have disagreed, but it would have been shitty to force the issue. I mean, if it happens in real life, why not fictionalize it to expose the issue and analyze it etc? Isn't that part of art? Anyway, after we broke up she wrote an article for a magazine and sent me and a list of friends an announcement that it got published. In the article she recounts a comedic time in her recent relationship where she was trying to trick her BF into impregnating her. She tried to fish the condom out of the trash, lied to him about being on the pill etc. I was horrified and wrote back, appalled, and she laughed it off and told me I was overreacting because she didn't succeed. It was really my fault for not wanting to get her pregnant. Amazingly, everyone else I told agreed. I got so upset that I finally said that it was like rape. This was appalling to everyone, and when one acquaintance said that they are not similar at all, I said, "You're right. Rape only ruins one life." Of course that was immature and hurtful, but I felt so violated that I went out and got a vasectomy. At 30, I never share this story because it makes me sound like some asshole men's rights douche. I'm not that guy. I just don't see why no one could see this as batshit horrible. A girl asked me to slap her in the face during sex. A limp-wristed awkward attempt was made. Then she asked me to punch her in the face, then piss on her face. I couldn't do either. Call me boring, but it was a little too much for me. What's her number? For science. There was the time I was raped. Also, my mom is really into trying to lift my shirt to see the weight loss progress I've made. High school. I'm the new kid in school. Sophomore transfer student. Was at the high school less than a week before this short, kind of curvy redhead walked up to me and asked me to the homecoming dance. My first thought was cool. Someone wants to go to the homecoming dance. Nothing like this has ever happened before. Then comes to catch. I'm only asking cause you seem like you would be fun to go out back and fuck your brains out. That sent up red flags immediately. I turned tail and ran. Fast forward 2 weeks. I have learned she let the wrestlers and football teams run a trail on her and was doing glory holes at the local college houses. The girl was like 17 at the time. In college this woman I knew was dating my roommate and we were all good friends too. Practically family. Our group of friends hung out constantly. We, 4 of us, even went on vacation to New Orleans together. Well, my guy friend got cancer and passed away and I lost contact with her for a few years. We reconnected and hung out and started on the path towards dating. Well, she starts asking questions and saying things like "I'm not sure I really know you," and asks me some questions like "Have I ever gotten arrested?" which was absurd, and other questions. I told her that I was the same guy she knew from years ago and it's a bit weird to feel like we're starting from scratch, like she's never met me before. Well, she worked for Child Protective Services, and when we were driving somewhere, she admitted she looked up my background using the CPS database, and she said it confirmed what I had told her. One speeding ticket a decade earlier. I was livid at being treated like a child abuser, and itched her quick. Fuck that. Her loss. I have 2. In my younger days I was at a club and while walking through a crowd to meet some friends, a girl walking in front of me reached back and grabbed my junk. Another time, while out for a friend's birthday I was standing in a large group. A girl insisted in staying directly in my line of sight and whenever a song came on she would slide her hands up and down my chest and arms. I'll take signs. I'm actually texting a dude for $100. I stole my boyfriend's sweaters. He was getting peed. They kept going missing. What do you even do with them? They smell like you. I like to have them especially at night when I sleep. Oh, fucking creep. My girlfriend wears a set of my tracksuits and t-shirt to bed. I left them after a sleepover, and don't think you'll ever get them back. I don't mind. I find it kinda cute. Yeah, in part I think it's a subtle reminder that you're genuinely wanted, and that can be heartwarming. I had 2 hoodies I wore and my GF at the time would always keep one. She'd periodically ask to trade them when the one she had would lose my scent. Maybe sounds creepy to type, but she liked having something to remind her of me when we weren't in bed together. I thought it was cute. I guess you could say it was not to be.